Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022. Council members are encouraging virtual public participation as there's limited seating in council chambers due to the number of COVID-19 infections in our areas. All meetings will be live streamed on the city website and the City Pittsburgh YouTube channel. Our first order of business is roll call. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess, Mr. Coghill, Ms. Gross,
Here.
Mr. Kraus,
Here.
Mr. O'Connor,
Here.
Mrs. Cal Smith, Ms. Strasburger,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
6 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment, and I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation, which are or may be before city council. Profanity will not be permitted. Once I call you, please provide your name and neighborhood for the record. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. Our first registered speaker is Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller.
Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller, Bells River, Homewood, Harlem, New York City, New York, Gaborone, Botswana are my residences, among others. Global Intelligence Society U.S. National Candidate 2024, Twitter, Dr. Ron Lynn Miller at Dr. Ron Lynn Miller 1. A concern of this council is with Africa. I and the GIS are seeking a link with Gaborone, the capital of Botswana. The Gaborone-Pittsburgh comparison is very valuable, I think, in information and intelligence to us. Gaborone has approximately 250,000 in population, which compares with Pittsburgh's 300,000 mid-sized cities. Gaborone has a minimum of 12 universities and colleges, 25 plus here in Pittsburgh, the former dominated by the University of Botswana. The current president of Botswana is a graduate of the University of Botswana, and here dominated by the University of Pittsburgh, both national education beacons. Gaborone's economy is based on diamonds, which is unlike Pittsburgh's 25,000 companies at least, that centers on primarily medical and information systems. Gaborone, unlike Pittsburgh, is a national capital, and it is a financial hub. Pittsburgh is as well, but they have located there have the Botswana Stock Exchange, and I think we should create one here, the U.S. Stock Exchange Pittsburgh, using crypto and gold as a base. Gaborone is 93% racially Black, compared with or contrasted with Pittsburgh, which last estimate 23% Black. So what is the meaning of Black as a constructive racial identity quality? I've asked people all over the United States about this, and biological genetic code for dark skin color is the agreed line. But I would like to add 3 in conjunction with these people. Maximum anthropological intelligence, the genetic code dispersal across the world, maximum musicological intelligence, the generation of novel and complex diaspora Africans have done this, jazz being a very important one in my view, and maximum code linguistic intelligence. There is no other region on earth. 3,000 languages.
Thank you. Our next registered speaker is Naomi Mullen, followed by Carmen Brown.
Good morning. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. We, the people of Bon Air, have significant investments into our properties. We stand to lose significant value financially and quality of life reduction. The largest investment that the average American will make is their home. Our biggest assets are being threatened. This is why we as a community have expressed significant concern about the potential development of Bon Air School into anything other than a green space. We already had a valuable school stolen from our community. We deserve a valuable green space to replace it. The Pennsylvania Constitution states under political powers that all power is inherent in the people and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. Negligent infliction of emotional distress and blockbusting are being perpetrated by those who oppose our community. Real damages are occurring to the Bon Air community. I have no doubt that this controversy was a contributing factor to the demise of my husband. The PPS created this controversy against us, the property owners of Bon Air. My husband did his duty to promote the peace, safety, and happiness of the people he served. Will you, as elected public servants, do your duty to help the people of Bon Air? My husband, Michael, was duty-bound his entire adult life. He completed his mission on earth well. He is now one of the watchers and helping in the spiritual realm. He is still a force with us. A neighbor wrote, I think one of the best ways we will honor him is to keep fighting for Bon Air and be kind to our neighbors. We will commit to that, I promise. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not see Carmen Brown with us, which would make our next registered speaker Renee Haynes Johnson. Currently on mute, Ms. Johnson. There we go.
Good morning. Can you
Morning.
hear me now?
Yes, we can.
What?
Thank you. Good morning, Madam President and council members. I am Renee Haynes Johnson and I live in Wilkinsburg. The Wilkinsburg Community Destruction Corporation, an active political huckster, along with their paid cronies and political allies, will present their biased wares to you this afternoon to effect the sale of Wilkinsburg. I use the term sale because their intent is to have you buy into the indebtedness of the borough as well as all its properties, per the annexation law. I guess that I question the county's role in this and their motivation, as they are a higher political entity with their own funds to act on the Penn Avenue corridor, which they lust to see developed, since development seems to be such an issue. I'm sure you'll see a vibrant and colorful presentation this afternoon. The charts and graphs presented by HR&A advisors and PFM financial advisors may be titillating, but are biased to persuade you to get on board the WCDC's Annex Wilkinsburg train. Again, I caution you to not be bamboozled. There's an old saying, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with BS. If what you want in your pursuit of information are pure data and the results of accurate, unbiased assessments, you'd be better off handing that request to the astute CMU grad students, or maybe even ask Wilkinsburg Borough itself. The city of Pittsburgh and its school board have more pressing matters. I ask that you vote no, not now, on annexing Wilkinsburg. Thank you.
Thank you. That exhausts our list of registered speakers. We will now move to speakers who may be with us in chambers today. Please come forward, provide your name and neighborhood for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes.
Pardon me for not hearing.
It's your turn to speak, Mr. Ludwig.
Thank you. My name is Les Ludwig, 6589 Rosemore Street, Squirrel Hill. And I bring a card, a business card for a man who literally was so disturbed that he was screaming publicly in Miracle Year's waiting room almost a year ago. And what was he screaming about? Well, it happens that Chip Purcell of the Enviro 21 company, 301 Grant Street, operates apparently a dump. And he can't get the business of the city of Pittsburgh, or at least that was his complaint, to the tune of $75 difference, less money for each packer that goes to the dump. I understand, Mr. Coghill, that this is your area, and I'll give you the card. Check it out. It's money going down literally down the tube, if the information that I got was correct. So a person has a responsibility in a community to get up and bring that information forward, and I do it with great pleasure. And it would be my pleasure to work with you if there's anything that you want done. So therefore, I turn to the greater subject of ideas. I am a person who has spent 20 years of my life at this podium, and it's all been mostly in the area of ideas. And I don't think you're listening very closely. Most of you are busy on your telephones, etc., when a speaker is up here. We have the opportunity to produce a city that's above and beyond anything anyone ever dreamed of. But we're not going to do it with the existing ideas. When you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes a habit pattern. And what happens? Nothing new. There's no room for anything new. I'm the guy who came with the idea of don't pave under where the cars are parked. Pave more miles of roads. In 2003, it's in the minutes of the meeting. And it took how many years to even reach reality here in the community? That's just one example.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live at Katie Irvis. I first wanted to say that Alma Fox passed away. A lot of the residents and in the community see me and told me, I saw you on TV. I said, it has to be an old frame. And it was with Miss Alma Fox. That was when the mayor was giving her the key to the city. I was leaving city council, and here she was, they were rolling her in the wheelchair. And I said, oh, Miss Fox. She said, yes, they're giving me the key to the city. And I had said, could I come? And she said, yes. And then she took and she hugged me and she was saying, this is my little advocate that are fighting for the city, for all the people in the city. Even Alma knew that I was fighting. This is a woman that went to jail for our rights, because we weren't allowed to go into Kaufman's and stores. We had to buy our clothes and take them. We wasn't even allowed to try them on. They didn't hire too many Black people either. She fought just like I'm fighting, and I'm fighting because you're making the decision in life and death with us. Like, yes. I want to bring up to the last lady that spoke when she said about it's going to be a meeting, and it will be this afternoon. But we can't speak. I found out, but I'm going to be here because I want to look at them police and everybody that's in here for you to look. Look, this is my son who was killed. Look, I want you to see a dark Black man. That's why he died, because he was dark complected. My daughter said when he came down the steps and said, let me get myself together, and crawled in there and was saying, no, no. And the shirt went up. There was marks in his back. The police hollered, you were shot. He said, yeah, how many times? Twice. And when I read the autopsy, I called my daughter. I was crying. I said, what? She said, Mama, he had been shot in his leg. He never told you. But if it had been he had been operation where he had been stabbed in his back, colon, intestine, and kidney severed in half. But because of the carrot juice, and I'm telling you, I made them drink that for all his life. It fused back together. Even the doctor said, come in, it's a miracle. His kidney is fused back together. Do you understand? If we can help any person, and this is for anyone, when you lose someone like Miss Alma Fox, I feel for her. And with her, and I hope it be the same for me, they said, let the work I do speak for me. I hope this will say that. I come down not to argue with you, but to bring to light that you have a man that was begging for his life. He was saying he had one lung. And like I said, when I hear the men that the police killed would say, why do I have time? Nothing. I'll go. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. May we please have our next speaker? Are there any other speakers with us in chambers and or online? Seeing none, that will move us to our standing committee agenda. Our first committee of the day is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. Our first supplemental paper is Bill 79.
Bill 79, resolution further amending resolution number 796 entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2014 Capital Budget and the 2014 CDBG Program and the 2014 through 2019 Capital Improvement Program by reducing architectural and engineering by $36,820.21 and increasing capital equipment acquisition by $36,820.21.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion?
Second.
Wilson?
Sure. Bills? Yeah, so I have some questions, but looks like there's several.
Second one.
Not for this bill. We're on Bill 79. You do have an amendment for another vehicle-related bill. Councilman Wilson?
Yeah, if we
Read them
could
all.
just have an explanation of what's going on. I don't know.
Would you like
Whoever
Mr.
can
Pollak?
Whoever can speak to the bill. I mean, I imagine this is a series of bills that are,
That's right, Councilman. Jake Pollack, Director, Office of Management and Budget, and I believe
sorry.
Services Manager Brandon Walton is on.
Okay.
I don't-
But before we get to some questions that I have, do we want to read all the bills that pertain to?
Well, we have an amendment for one of them, which is why I didn't read them all together.
Okay.
Members are comfortable reading them all together and then amending one of them separately.
Mr. Chair, if I might suggest, the first four are not the ones that have an amendment. It's Bill 46, the ELA bill that does. So you might, if it's the pleasure of council, you might read the first four together.
Certainly do that. So we could read Bill 79, 80, 81, and 82 together.
Bill 80, resolution further amending resolution number 772 entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2017 Capital Budget and the 2017 CDBG Program and the 2017 through 2022 Capital Improvement Program by reducing integrated self-assessed business tax and revenue management by $3,976 and increasing capital equipment acquisition by $3,976. Bill number 81, resolution further amending resolution number 797, resolution adopting and approving the 2018 capital budget, the 2018 CDBG program, the 2018 through 2023 capital improvement program by reducing enterprise resource planning by $137,037.60 and increasing capital equipment acquisition by $137,037.60. Bill number 82. Bill 82, resolution further amending resolution number 863 of 2018 entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2019 Capital Budget, the 2019 CDBG Program, the 2019 through 2024 Capital Improvement Program by reducing consultants for plans and studies by $100,000, reducing park reconstruction by $200,000 and increasing capital equipment acquisition by $300,000.
A motion to approve, discussion, please.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, we still have Councilman Wilson with the floor. Councilman?
Thank you. Unless you want to make comment first.
Well, I would, if you wouldn't
Yeah.
mind. Okay, so,
I didn't mean to.
no, that's okay.
I didn't mean to catch you off
You know, that's
guard.
okay. I was rushed getting here. I was running late, so I'm getting a little discombobulated, but, first I want to, thank the administration, Mr. Pollock. Here's where we're at with Public Works, so we all know. Last year, we made a great deal of improvements, whether it was a salt distribution from the trucks, making sure our people come in, as a required overtime. But after many days and many talks with the administration, we've come to the conclusion, we just need more vehicles, more safely, operating vehicles, and we also need more drivers. We've, to much of the credit of the administration, they scrambled, they found money. I want to thank the lion's share is coming from Councilwoman Gross's district. I understand it's by loan. So we'll make that clear. But no, I can't say enough as to, this is the only thing, the immediate impact that we can have just to get us through this year. The other thing is the way that it was done. We went back and forth to hire private operators. That was kind of my angle. But I like the fact that we're purchasing these 6 new vehicles. It will help our fleet get up to the standards that it needs to be. We are going to rent 6 vehicles just to get us through this year. So that'll be a total of 12 vehicles on the street. The majority of that is, going towards almost $400,000 towards the purchase of the 6 vehicles. And that's fully equipped with the plow, with the salt spreader, with everything it needs. So I couldn't be more delighted. If this is an example of how this administration is going to work with council, we're all going to be in good hands, I think, with whether it's this crisis. I think I call this a crisis in my district because it's just a matter of time before somebody slides down a hill and is seriously injured or killed. So that's where it's at. And then, turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Strasburger?
Wilson had the floor.
I thought he deferred. Councilman Wilson, followed by Councilwoman Strasburger.
And Mr. Chair, please.
Well, thanks, Councilman. And, after the last snowstorm, I was really wondering what was going on. So I drove over to your area. That's to compare. So we're in a very similar situation. So I just want to, thanks for looking into this. So I just want to know, so we're getting 12 vehicles,
Yes.
these purchases?
Well, no, 6 purchases, 12 leases. If I could, do you want me to start with the
Yeah.
vehicle impact or the financial component? We could start either place.
Either one.
Okay, so why don't I start with what the budgetary amendments are and, what is being changed within the budget to accomplish this, and then we can talk, and Brandon will jump in to discuss in greater detail than I can the equipment side of things. Having been through now 4 winter weather events in a month, this has been an uncharacteristically, at least through recent example, snowy winter. We have been working, the administration have been working closely with the Department of Public Works to assess their needs. And it's clear, as Councilman Coghill mentioned, that due to the unforeseen and out of everyone here's hands delay in the delivery of new vehicles that were ordered last year, there is a shortage of vehicles able to help us meet our snow service needs. Particularly because this fleet is older than it should be by Director Hornstein's estimation, about twice as old as it should be. And that results in a larger number of vehicles than usual going down for long-term maintenance. And also just vehicles in the midst of a snowstorm, even if the maintenance is short-term, being placed out of service during those critical hours to treat a snow event. So our assessment was that, a supplementary purchase of vehicles, and in this case, a leasing of vehicles, was necessary to maintain and to the extent possible, improve our level of service in snow events. To that end, we began looking at budget line items that are either capital budget line items that are either essentially dormant, funds left over from projects that weren't needed or are complete, as well as a couple of projects that were not in a position to be contracted and encumbered this year, so that we could access those dollars to make a quick purchase to meet the needs of the city during this snow event. I can quickly reference what those projects are. There was funding in the budget for a Sawmill Run zoning study that was, I believe, a request of Councilman Coghill's, which he graciously agreed to defer for the purposes of making this purchase, given the needs of his and the needs of the city on this topic. There was a very old 2014 architectural and engineering services line item with a remaining balance of $36,000. That line item really predates the establishment of DOMI and was kind of, I think it's fair to say, sort of fell through the cracks in that transition between DOMI and DPW, and so no one was accessing that line item for many years, and as a result, it's available for reprogramming. As Councilman Coghill mentioned, Councilwoman Gross has very graciously and generously lent us the money for Leslie Park engineering study. It is the administration's full intention to ensure that that project does move forward and is refunded when we have the ability to encumber it. But because there was no opportunity to do that in the medium term, the Councilwoman agreed. And again, I very much appreciate her accommodating us on this, that we could make use of these funds for this immediate need and ensure that that project moves forward as soon as possible with both new funding and a plan to execute on it. Enterprise resource planning from 2018. This is leftover funds from a JD Edwards upgrade that were not needed to complete that project, and a small remainder in an IMP fund for an integrated self-assessed business management tool. Again, there's only almost $4,000 remainder there that was just still in the budget. So what we really have is 5 lines, 3 of which were not capital projects in a district, but rather, asset improvement upgrades with remaining funds, 2 of which were council district specific ones, and the council members have agreed to this repurposing for the time being.
Yeah.
So financially, that's where the funds are being drawn from.
All right, thanks. Oh, good.
Sorry, in terms of what we get with those dollars, as Councilman Coghill mentioned, we'll be purchasing 6 vehicles. Brandon can speak to the specs, but I believe they are Chevy 2500 and 3500s, and leasing some vehicles to supplement. And I think we are looking at this lease process as potentially a pilot for ways in future years that we can be more flexible with the composition of the fleet as we upgrade it. There are many vehicles in our inventory that are only used for winter operations. And so, and that basically sit in the garage the rest of the year. More work needs to be done, and we need to sort of learn from the experience of doing a lease this year to know whether that's a viable option for the future, but something that will give us good experiential data on how we most effectively, cost effectively, and performance effectively manage the fleet. So with that, Ed Councilman, with your permission, I'd like to just let Brandon speak further to any of the specs.
I'm good on the specs. I mean, maybe he wants to talk to someone else. Okay. Go ahead. We can do it now.
I have questions about it.
Mr. Walton, you're being asked to speak to the sort of the specs of the trucks.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I didn't hear that. So the six purchases, they are Chevy 2500 regular cab pickups with the 8-foot beds. They're being purchased through the Pennsylvania CoStars contract from a dealer in Erie. They'll be upfitted with the Western plows that we use on our normal on the rest of our fleet, as well as Byers salt dogs. Those are being purchased through the CoStars contract as well, through A&H equipment. As for the 6 leases, the specs aren't exactly known yet. So it will be 4 pickups similar to a Chevy 2500 with an 8-foot bed. Also, they'll have plows similar to the 8-foot Western plows, and they will have V-box spreaders similar to the ones that we use, the Byers. In addition, there will be 2 F-750s. They will be dump trucks with tailgate spreaders, similar to what we use, as well as 9 to 11-foot plows, similar to what we use on that size vehicle. Those are scheduled to be delivered hopefully in the next week if we are approved to do this.
All right, thanks. So does the equipment and leasing authority, do they have to like get together on an emergency meeting to make this happen? How does this work?
So the bill 46, which is the not part of the package that's been assembled today, but which will be the next item the council votes on, would be a companion amendment to increase the authorization for the transfer to the ELA. I believe they would do this as an interim approval, which is just something that we need signatures, to effectuate that.
Okay.
ELA can.
So, okay, so you're gonna get signatures, do interim approval. So the 13 million that we put aside for vehicles, when do we expect it to come in?
You're talking about the order that was placed last.
17 vehicles.
I'm just talking about the money,
Oh.
13 million.
I don't believe that's known at this time. Those continue to be delayed by supply chain shortages. I don't believe. Brandon, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we have an estimated delivery date.
Are we speaking to the funding on this cooperation agreement or funding from 2021, council member?
The 2021.
So the majority of everything on the 2021 plan has been ordered. There are only a few leftover items that cannot be ordered due to the manufacturers not opening order banks. As for everything else that is ordered, some of the items are starting to go into production. We're expecting to see some police cars, as well as a chassis for an ambulance over the next few weeks. But other than that, everything else has been delayed by the supply shortages. We do not have an estimated delivery date.
Okay, so how many vehicles were coming in? That was going to like replace the whole fleet. I'd imagine 13 million is a big number.
It's not going to replace the whole fleet. That's 17 vehicles. That's an upgrade to the existing.
Oh, that includes like the bigger items like a fire truck, stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So just in terms of plows, what does that include? The 13?
In terms of, I'm sorry?
Yeah, the plows we're waiting on. How many plows are we waiting on?
There are 13 similar to the Chevy 2500s. They are Ford F-350s, and they would get the V-box spreaders and plow systems. Those are not scheduled for production yet. We can't get them moved to a different manufacturer. So we are waiting on those. Those are part of that dollars from 2021. We also had an F-550 11-foot dump that will also have a spreader and a plow that was ordered last year. It has been delivered to the upfit vendor who will put the bed, spreader, plow, and Skyhawk snowplow tracker system on it.
So that number will just replace the old ones?
Yes, so those will be those were ordered to replace vehicles that are currently in service.
So right now we're adding to the fleet. So does that mean we have drivers that are ready to go that are not able to access a vehicle now, that they're at the division ready to go if we drive these ones down from Erie, the 6?
Between well, first of all, because those other vehicles have not yet arrived, and because of the number of vehicles that are out of service for maintenance, either long-term or at any given time. And because the Department of Public Works has just hired 9 more drivers. The short answer to your question is yes. I mean, obviously on any given shift, that number fluctuates, but.
Okay, they just hired 9 more drivers.
That's correct.
Okay.
Including two promotions, or transfers from environmental services and animal control respectively.
Okay, and then will they 6, will they be spread out to the divisions? How?
Yeah, I think the rough plan is once all 12 vehicles are available to per division, and then that would be 2 additional vehicles to be allocated based on need.
Okay. I think, part of the larger issue that I'm seeing is just not knowing where we haven't been. I mentioned this yesterday in comments about this. And so, we have 2 different GPS systems, and then there's always the paper route. My understanding is that, just like drivers don't know all parts of the city if they're transferred, like there's a GPS system. And so, but then also the separate GPS system is, how we get to see the truck on the tracker. So can you explain what's going on? Because my residents, like call in, to the office, and then we're always putting the streets in after the fact to supervisor, and they do a great job. And I think that, the workers are, they're there doing their job. Supervisors trying to manage what's going on. I just feel like we have all this technology. What would it take so that we never have to have a resident call into the office and say that my street hasn't been done a couple of days after it snowed?
Yeah, that would take many more drivers and many more trucks than what is being proposed here. I think that that is the level of service that the administration is aiming for, but understanding that we're not going to get there overnight and not realistically going to get there in this snow season. However, we are, with this action and others that we're taking, looking to minimize and reduce the amount of time it takes us to reach an adequate level of service through investments in equipment, in personnel, and in systems improvement. Frankly, I mean, it will take a lot of work in the off season, if you will, this year, that once we get through the winter weather season, to look at some of those optimization questions. Right now, we're looking to triage the problem by ensuring that we have more vehicles and are not down significantly in the number of available vehicles due to maintenance. So this is certainly a stopgap measure, but one that we think is necessary to ensure that through February and March and even April snows, that we are as prepared as we can be. Your question, I'm sorry, that was to your final question about what it would take to address the issue. To your question about GPS, so there are GPS systems that track the movements of the vehicles. That's what you see in the snowplow tracker. So there are times it's frequently the case that there will be a vehicle that is not reporting for technical reasons related to the GPS. And so you're right, sometimes there is work that is happening that's not showing up in the tracker. That happens on a sort of ad hoc basis, right? So a piece of equipment is down or something like that. The other issue you're asking about, I think, is the GPS routing. That is not in effect this year. That was a decision made by Acting Director Hornstein. The previous attempt to do a route optimization, which was to redesign all the routes and load those redesigned routes into the GPS units, it was the experience after testing that out that the routes changed so dramatically in that optimization attempt that it was causing basically confusion for the drivers who are used to their existing routes. So at the moment, drivers are operating off of the routes that predated that optimization. They are on paper. Most of the drivers drive consistent routes and just sort of know their route, but if someone's reassigned, they have that as their guide. The objective is to do another round of the optimization that is not such a dramatic shift from the previous routing. So it will be a change to the routes, but not as complete of one. It's not totally different, so that they're to strike the right balance between sort of the driver's institutional knowledge and the efficiency that can be gained from the routing. So we're working expeditiously to implement that, so the drivers will have a route on the GPS, but that's not presently in place.
Okay, so when do you think we'll have it all in place where the routing GPS is?
I don't have a timeline for that. I'm sorry. That's that's a work in progress. It's something that the department is pursuing, but I don't believe we have a firm timeline.
Is there an option to get the data from like IMP? They're the ones that run the snowplow tracker. Can they, since they're tracking it, can they gather the data and then send back to streets that still need to be hit?
Oh, so that is known, right? The streets that have not been serviced is known based on the technology that tracks where the trucks have been. So there's not an issue of identifying streets that have not yet been serviced. That's separate from the routing question, which is where the drivers are when they're.
So you are so IMP is sending.
Public Works is doing it.
Public Works is aware of where they haven't been based on the tracker.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess I just, there are some that, honestly, there streets that aren't done, several days after. So I'm just, do we just have a rule that we're not going to go to certain?
No, the issue is, there are technological limitations. I should state that. As I said, sometimes vehicles don't report. Sometimes if vehicles are moving below a certain speed, that doesn't show up, and so there are gaps in the data, and that's not a system issue. There are limitations to what the technology can provide. I guess I would put it that way. To your point about streets that are not serviced, just speaking from personal experience, having gone on a ride along with a driver in the first snowstorm of this year, often the plowing is happening at night. Often, with snow falling, visibility is low. Sometimes cars are, particularly if they park during the snowstorm, they're parked in such a way that the truck can't get through. So they have to they have to go around a block, while that's happening, and then, those cars move at some point and it does become accessible. And by that time we maybe have gotten a call. So it's not that they didn't know they had to go back there, but there's a timing issue, right? It's also the case that during a snow event, while the snow is still falling, right? The primary objective is to keep emergency routes and routes to and from hospitals clear. Right? So while the snow event is occurring, that means servicing those roads multiple times in some instances, depending on weather conditions, which delays the ability to get deeper into the neighborhoods on the secondary and tertiary streets. So it is the case that if depending on how long a snow event lasts, some of those other streets are not treated as expeditiously as we would like. And that is sometimes what results in a call that says they haven't been treated, and we get someone there as quickly as we can. But really, the issue, frankly, is one of equipment and personnel. If a truck is being dispatched to service a route in a particular neighborhood, and that truck goes down for maintenance and needs to be diverted to first vehicle or heavy equipment for repairs, that means that route is not able to be serviced until a driver who's driving a different route finishes their route and then is reassigned. And so that can lead to delays in a neighborhood that are sporadic. I believe, forgive me, there have been 4 of them now, so I can't remember the order, but there have been times, just to use an example from your district, Councilman, where we've been able to get to Troy Hill very quickly, and times when there have been delays, and that's in part due to the availability of vehicles. That fluctuates in the course of a storm.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Troy Hill because I had multiple calls, and whenever I talked to the supervisor, he would say that the small truck is down.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you all looking into this, and I'm going to be supportive because I want to, I like to see some problem solving, and I want to see if this is going to, solve that problem. So, all right, thanks.
Chair, he's done.
Thank you. Councilwoman Strasburger, followed by Council President Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director, for being here today. I too appreciate the creative problem solving, and thanks to Councilman Coghill and Councilwoman Gross for giving up for your problem solving and for giving up some of your own projects or deferring for a period of time, not giving up.
I was going to say, be careful, but
I'm trying to glean from that last conversation with Councilman Wilson the answer to this question, but I don't think I totally heard it. So I'm going to ask it again. It sounds as if the leasing solution will help us for future storms this year, this winter season. But given the supply chain problems and challenges we're facing, even if something miraculous happens, we're probably not going to see those new purchases in these bills help us this winter season, but probably next winter season.
No,
Is
that's,
that correct? Okay.
no. So the leases will be available as Brandon was saying, almost immediately.
Leases will be available immediately. Yep.
The 6 purchases are unlike the order from last year, which were being manufactured based on our order, and those ones are stuck in a supply chain issue. The 6 vehicles we'd be purchasing already exist and are on a CoStar's dealer lot in Erie as we speak. So once we purchase them,
got
we
it.
can
Okay.
bring them here immediately. They will need to be upfitted, as Brandon mentioned, having the plow and the salt spreaders added. And that will take some time. So those 6 will probably trickle into the supply as those upfits are completed. So, but they will become available during this snow season.
Great. That was my main question when I kept hearing this in the news and the last conversation. So when you say flexibility, you're saying that potentially, and tell me if we already do this, I'm guessing no, given that we're asking for a very specific specs for the ones that we're building and that are being held up. For the 6 new ones that are essentially pickup trucks that we're outfitting with the necessary equipment, when you say flexibility and use for other off-season uses, does that mean that it's something that's flexible enough where you can remove the plow portion of it and use it for other DPW needs?
That's what we do with that's what we do with the majority of the trucks in the fleet.
And we do. Okay.
Yes, yeah, the same vehicles that you see, doing other maintenance activities in the spring and summer are the ones that have the plows and salt spreaders put on for the winter.
So we're currently doing that and we'll continue to do that with these. Great. Okay. Yeah, I think those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So that takes us to Councilwoman Gross, followed by Councilman Kraus, then President Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just I'm going to reiterate that since we kind of have been talking about it for a few minutes. So just to be loud and clear, since my district is giving up the bulk of the dollars, we have drivers with no vehicles. And we've had repeated snowstorm events. We're expecting more. We need more vehicles immediately. And so there are some in Erie and we can buy them. And that was the urgency that the director called me with and just to be clear to my members, because I will need your help in replacing these dollars, that I first said, no, Absol, are you crazy? Forget it, right? A few days ago, because Leslie Park is where this money is coming from. Senator Furlow gave money for the planning to replan this park. So it's been waiting 7 years. We had the community we had the community meetings, we had the planning. It's beat up, it's graffitied. It's heartbreaking to people in Lawrenceville to see the condition of the closed Leslie Park pool. That is, we're not maintaining even to keep it clean. So that's also one of my asks, that we get out there and we get it so it's not an eyesore and it's not so painful. And that we replace this money and even though the money was there, it had not been engineered, it had not been encumbered, and the project had been stuck for years. So my ask is that it gets unstuck this year and gets moving so that the people can have a revitalized park. And if you haven't noticed, there are quite a few kids in Lawrenceville these days. So it's as opposed to 8 years ago, it's really in demand. It's super used and it definitely needs a little love and attention. And so that is the kind of 2 urgencies when the director called me back and said, look, it's PAYGO money. It's the kind of exactly the type of money we need. These trucks are sitting in Erie and we can get them. I said, okay, but you got to promise to do this project. So that's the promise that we're all making. And I will respectfully and humbly ask my members to cooperate when we find the funds to replace these funds. But for today, we can get trucks with these funds and we can get drivers and trucks for the next snow. So that's fingers crossed. All right, thank you, Director. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Kraus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. I really want to bring this conversation back to the heart of the matter. We can discuss snow removal. We have discussed the processes by which we do snow removal for the 14, now going into 15 years I've been on council. And I suspect that will be discussed for the next 15 years as well. I'd really like to focus this on the acquisition, the purchase of these vehicles, how it came to be, and the dollars by which we are using to purchase the vehicles. So Brandon, I have a couple questions for you. And for those that may not know, for whatever reason, whether they're watching or listening, I speak as a member of council for 14 years, now going into my 15th year, and a member of the Equipment Leasing Authority Board for 13 or 14 years now. So Brandon, can you explain for the edification of everyone the CoStarz contract and how we are using this contract to purchase these vehicles?
Yes, so the CoStarz contract is a state-run cooperative purchasing contract where vendors apply to be listed on there for entities like us and other municipalities to use that purchasing platform as opposed to the need to go out for a bid process.
So that's where I wanted to go with the conversation. Can you please explain as to why or why not a bid process takes place in this kind of an acquisition?
So in this kind of an acquisition, in terms of buying fleet quickly or buying fleet in general, Councilman?
Buying both. How's that?
Okay. So what we do,
I need members. I apologize for overspeaking. I need newer members, perhaps, and the public at large to understand why an RFP process would not be applicable in the purchase of $500,000, $500,000 worth of vehicles.
Yes. So the CoStarz agreement allows the dealers to list their discount that they're offering on top of the manufacturer discounts. And then you can actually reach out and competitively bid the individual dealerships, which is what we normally do for a new purchase when we're going to order trucks. So every time we order trucks, we do put it out. There's about 90 dealers in the state that are part of the CoStarz contract, and we select the lowest basically
responsible
bid. Yes, and that's who we purchase from for each vehicle, and we do that for every single make and model vehicle that we're purchasing, whether it's police cars, trucks, whatever. For this purchase, we basically we got one of our dealers that we purchased vehicles on from in 2021 and asked them to do a nationwide search on what was available. And upon doing that, we then asked them to narrow it down to only CoStarz dealers. That way we could use the cooperative purchasing agreement. And that's when we found these 6 trucks in Erie on a CoStarz dealer.
Okay, thank you. That was incredibly helpful. And were you who was asked to do the search as our fleet manager? Were you the one who was asked to do the search to find trucks if they were out there?
Yes, Councilman. I am the primary source for all of the ELA's purchasing of vehicles. Everything usually flows through my office.
I don't want to be over cautionary, but I want to be protective of the Equipment Leasing Authority and the powers and the authority that they have and the systems and processes by which we purchase vehicles. And I want to make certain that the processes and the systems by which we have governed ourselves are applicable to this purchase as well too. Can you please explain a little bit to us the conditions of the lease, the terms of the lease, and what that looks like?
Yes, Councilman. So we are actually,
And I'm sorry, I'm going to overspeak you one more time, and I apologize. I'm asking Brandon questions that I would normally have asked the solicitor for the ELA, which unfortunately he has passed recently, and we do not have a solicitor at this time. And that's why I'm asking Brandon these questions. Thanks, Brandon.
yes, Councilman. So the ELA is held to, procurement standards. The ELA follows the state procurement standards, as well as some of the city's procurement standards. So we definitely talk to the procurement team before making any purchase on any cooperative agreement. So this Herc Reynolds is the company that we're doing the lease from. They're on the Omnia contract. The Omnia Partners contract is similar to CoStar's, but it is a nationwide cooperative agreement where cities similar to us will put out an RFP or an IFB, and then they will partner with Omnia to make it available to other municipalities similar to us. So we do that with some of our contracts, and the city has made multiple purchases through the Omnia Partners contracts.
Okay. And forgive me, I had an email come in, I had to read. Can you explain again the terms of the lease? What are we actually committing to? And to be perfectly upfront with members and anyone else who's listening, I have reservations about our commitment on council in the expenditure of capital dollars is always to make investments with those dollars that bear fruit for at least 5 years and preferably 10 years. And so to acquire capital dollars to go into a rental lease, which will expire in the very short term, I'm not sure it's prudent to be using capital dollars to do that. And perhaps I might need to challenge us as a council to find operating dollars by which we can lease these 6 vehicles, I believe you said, on a short-term basis.
Councilman, if I may quickly interject, all of the funds identified are pay-go. So while they are coming from the capital budget, they are not they're not debt. They are operating dollars that were placed in capital budget line items, just to clarify that.
I do appreciate that, Jake, and thank you for that. I still, and I don't want to belabor, we may need to take it offline. I still probably need my comfort level raised a little bit more to find a better source for very short term in lease of vehicles and using dollars that can be used for structure that bears longer term return. I have to think that through, but I'm sorry, Brandon, I forget now what question I had for you.
You were asking about the purchasing platform that we used for the rental itself.
Yeah. Well, actually, specifically, what are the terms of the lease to rent the vehicles? Can you enlighten us on that?
Yeah. So their terms are they give you a monthly price, and then you select the length of the rental.
And have we done that?
Yes. So we will do 2 months. And it is around $23,000 per month plus the shipping to get the equipment here.
Wow. So 2 months is $60,000. We're spending $30,000 a month to rent 6 vehicles.
Yes.
Do I have that right? Okay. Brandon, thank you very much. Jake, can I? You're not a chief. How can I address you better than Jake?
Director Pollack is fine.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you, Director Pollack. So can you help me to perhaps raise my comfort level as to how and why we chose these capital dollars, generally speaking? And I think this, and forgive me, I might be out on a limb here. This might even be legislated at some point in time, even when Councilwoman Brudiak was on the council. I think I'd have to ask our clerk to research for me that we may have even legislated a tighter expenditure of capital dollars that must provide investment for long term.
Again, Councilman, I guess my response to that would be that the dollars in question here are pay-go. They were placed into the capital budget through the pay-go process. We intentionally did not access any bond issuance proceeds for this proposal for exactly the reason that you're describing. That's the reason that we looked exclusively at PAYGO line items, so that it would be available for that type of transaction. So that we had the flexibility to not be utilizing, bond proceeds for, in part, a lease agreement.
Yeah, Director, I'm not arguing that. And I appreciate your position on that. I'm arguing perhaps maybe in a broader, more spiritual term, I don't know how else to say it, of what capital dollars are intended, regardless of how they are put into the capital budget. So I continue to have some reservations about using, I think, forgive me, is it $59,000? I'm trying to go through the legislation now. Director, can you assist me with which piece provides for that, or is there a specific piece that provides for that? There is not.
No, all four of the bills simply transfer PAYGO dollars from various line items in various budgets into vehicle capital equipment acquisition, excuse me. And
Yes.
then we have an amendment from Councilman Coghill on the next bill, Bill 46, that transfers or that increases the authorization for the ELA by a corresponding amount. So there's no one-to-one matching there.
Understood. Understood and appreciated. Can you tell me, Director, please, if the Equipment Leasing Authority Board was asked their thoughts in the acquisition, and I don't want to say signed off on it per se, because there has not been a interim approval process that has taken place, although that happens quite often. And over the years, I've signed many of the interim approvals, but I'm just curious on a bigger level if we have a sense that the Equipment Leasing Authority Board is comfortable and ultimately willing to sign these interim approvals when they come to them.
The interim approval process has not occurred because the funds have not been appropriated, right? We did not want to presuppose council's approval of the item. You're correct to point out that the board has not been, I guess, fully consulted or briefed on this question, with the exception of some individual members of the ELA who have been involved in this process. This is really something that we initiated last Friday and worked on over the weekend. So we will, of course, work with the ELA to execute the necessary work and address any concerns from members. But I take your point, and I think if this were a more conventional process, that would have been something that we would have taken up perhaps before advancing the proposal to council. But given what we believe to be the public safety implications of having adequate vehicles available, we were attempting to move as expeditiously as possible here.
Perhaps I'm working on just a slightly different platform in that I want to respect the authority of the authority. For those that may not know, I spun off yesterday after it has to be 14 years of service, 13 years. And Anthony, Councilman Coghill will be taking my position, but I want to stress the importance of respecting the work that they do. And regardless of the fury of the moment, just out of respect for them and the work that they do, I would greatly appreciate if there was consultation with the Equipment Leasing Authority Board, that they are comfortable moving with this, even though they have not taken an official action, so that we do not go through this process. And then when submitted with an interim approval, we have difficulty having members of the board sign off because they don't feel fully informed.
I can certainly fully commit to you to make sure that consultation occurs between today's meeting and final passage next Tuesday.
I appreciate that. Thank you always for your professionalism, Director, and I appreciate you being here this morning. And you too, Brandon. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Burgess, did you have questions?
I'll wait.
Okay. President Smith?
I'll just ask a few things. Actually, there's been a lot that's come to my attention since we've been sitting here. And one of the most important things is this contract and the ELA approval. I'm not going to ask those questions here, but I am going to abstain today until I get my answers when you and I work through these concerns because they're significant to the legality of this. And we've already been in the middle of enough controversies this week that I want to make sure whatever we're doing here is right. But with that said, I do know that we talked about there being enough vehicles for 2 per division, and I'm seeing 8 vehicles. Am I missing something here?
So it's 12.
12, okay. And there's how many, 6 divisions?
There are 5 divisions.
5 divisions.
There would be 2 per and then 2
And
additional.
then the dump trucks will be, where are you putting them? Where are you putting the vehicles?
That we haven't allocated the individual. I mean, so they're going to become available at different times based on what, again, presupposing that council approves this measure, the rentals will become available prior to the purchased trucks, which will take some time to upfit so that they'll be deployed as they become available to the divisions. I think as Brandon mentioned, all of the 12 vehicles, 10 are pickup size vehicles. They're equivalent to one another, so they're all just about the same. They're not identical, but they have equivalent specifications.
I just want to make sure that they're going to each council district because we're all voting for us, and that was my understanding. So I
Right.
thought
So,
that.
yeah,
So I
that's
just want to make sure.
that's
Yeah.
that's why we're saying that each division will receive additional vehicles.
Okay. And I just want to thank you and Councilman Coghill for thinking outside the box, even though this is unconventional for us. And so it is a little bit of area that we're not used to going down. And the contracting stuff does make me a little bit nervous. I'm always a little bit more cautious with that here, period.
Sure.
And Bill, I know, have you ever done this before through the ELA? Where you purchased equipment that didn't come back to council for a contract approval?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you talk about that?
It's a separate authority, so it does.
But you're not attorneys. Just tell me what you've done. So just tell me what you've done legally that's been, okay. You've done something like this previously, right?
Yes, we have made
Okay,
approvals.
that's what you say.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted you to say. Okay, so that we have a little bit more comfort level in doing this. But I do want to say, I want to make sure that I'm getting something from from the law department saying that this is legal across the board and what we're doing. That's all. But I want to thank you and Councilman Coghill for thinking outside the box. I think honestly, the snow removal has been an issue for decades. I don't know that it's ever going to be resolved. I do feel a little apprehensive about leasing the equipment versus buying it, purchasing it in Erie instead of somewhere in Pittsburgh or around here. Councilman Gross has some car dealerships. Councilman Coghill has some car dealerships in the area, but I don't know if they're under contract. So
Sure. So the reason for that, Councilwoman, as Brandon mentioned, is that we to do a purchase of this type. That's the reason we're making use of a Co-Stars dealership, so that because that allows it to be compliant with procurement rules, purchasing from,
yeah, I heard all that. I did hear all that. But anyway, the last thing I just I wanted to ask, I don't know if anybody's asked, do we know when we anticipate the delivery of the vehicles that we have purchased?
We do not have a delivery date on those. They have not started manufacture on those yet, to my knowledge.
Wow. So I wonder if there's some way we can get out of that contract and purchase them somewhere. I mean, I'm wondering what we can do legally because it's been an awfully long time. And we've waited an entire year for these vehicles to come in. So I'm wondering legally where we stand. And so that's another question I have for our law department. And so I'll pursue that as well
I
because
guess I'm sorry.
$13 million is a lot of dollars, and to not have the vehicles delivered within a reasonable amount of time, even with a delay due to COVID, this is just getting unacceptable, and our residents and our workers deserve better than that. And I think next year, when we have new equipment, when we have a better system in place, when all the things there'll be no excuse for these roads. And then I think if it happens again, council's going to have a lot of questions, but I want people to know in the meantime and in the interim, you are working towards getting a better result. And I do want to say, I think Director Hornstein is trying very hard, and I think the crews are working really hard, and I think your administration is. And I want to thank you for the job you're doing chairing the committee. But in the meantime, I'm going to wait before I vote. I'm going to abstain today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Burgess.
My daughter sings a variety of songs classical to pop to gospel. So one of the soundtracks that she sings along with her cousin, who stayed with me for a while. They did Wicked, right? No good deed goes unpunished, right? This is a good deed that you're trying to do. And we want to support you. We know that in some ways these processes are new to you. Council, you have an older council who's used to doing things in a very set way. And so that's why you're hearing a little bit of our concern. How long is the leases for?
2 months.
See, the problem with that is, and I'm going to be supportive. So let me be honest. I'm going to be supportive. But for some of us like me, that's not a capital expense. It's not. That's an operating expense. That a 2 months lease, by definition, cannot be a capital expense. It can only be an operating expense. And so even though what we're doing is right, we probably need to think through the language of it and the processes of it. Certainly we can use PAYGO to do it. Obviously we can use PAYGO to do, but just making sure, but vehicle purchases are usually a capital expense for us. So we have this, No, what I'm saying is we can use PAYGO to do either one, all right? We can use, I'm not saying we can't, I'm just saying that the leasing is not a capital expense. It is an operational expense, right? And so I haven't looked at the budget. I don't know if this is the capital budget side or the operating budget side or which one we're taking the money from. I'm simply saying that these sort of things are what we talk about. I'm being supportive, not being critical, but these are the things that you're going to hear us talk about and kind of debate and saying this thing has to be in the right place for us. Because, I talk about my marriage. I've been married a long time, right? And I have to put certain things in certain places, right? If I don't put certain things in certain places, my household will not be happy. And same thing sort of this council, we're looking for things to be in certain boxes. And so we'll help you. And I'm going to be supportive. I'm following my interest is Anthony Coghill's leadership in this. And I told him he knows that he has my support and we'll be supportive, but that's what you're hearing. You're hearing us looking at the boxes.
I completely understand, Councilman. Pardon me, yes, I didn't mean to refinish. Yeah, I completely understand. As Councilman Kraus and I have discussed numerous times, council has first and foremost a fiduciary responsibility to the city. I know you all take that responsibility very seriously. The administration takes our fiduciary responsibility seriously, but also respects your fiduciary responsibility. And so happy to entertain any questions you have, address any of them now or after, Councilwoman. And we're more than happy to engage in that dialogue.
Finish, Councilman? Thank you. The interesting part here is we're moving PAYGO dollars within the capital budget, which is what makes it interesting. Second round, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to reiterate again, like I did before, we have drivers with no vehicles. And so that is what is the emergency and the urgency here. And that the vehicles are in Pennsylvania. And whereas the $13 million of vehicles we ordered last year, most of the snow removal vehicles, what I'm hearing is that they haven't even been built. Okay, so we're not the only people experiencing supply chain issues on a variety of fronts, but we have vehicles in Pennsylvania that are on a CoStarz contract. And if we hurry up and find the appropriate funds, we can get them to Pittsburgh and get our drivers who are sitting there without vehicles into these vehicles. So otherwise, I would not have said yes to the $200,000 coming from my park fund. And I would have put up a bigger fight, but these funds are PAYGO funds. So I just asked our budget director, if it makes council more comfortable, we can amend and transfer the money to the operating budget first, and then from operating to ELA. If you'd like to do that on Tuesday, it makes no difference to me because I know the source of funds came from the basically general fund first. And then they went into the capital budget. So I'm completely comfortable approving this as written to go take pay-go funds from the capital budget and put them into the equipment leasing authority. But if we'd like before Tuesday to figure out putting them back into the operating budget and then putting from the operating budget into the equipment leasing authority, I'm sure we can figure that out, and I'd be happy to participate in those conversations. But it makes no difference to me either way. I'm supportive and I'm grateful. So it's just an option on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I have second round as well, please?
Yes, sir.
When my time comes. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Coghill, followed by Councilman Wilson, followed by Councilman Kraus.
Thank you. First, Director, I want to know, is Councilwoman Gross charging interest? And what's her rate? So no, but I just really want to put this clear and simple, okay? When we were looking at how we get more trucks and people on the streets to plow roads, initially, we were looking at private contractors. That was my call, I like much better the way this administration framed this. First of all, the trucks that we're purchasing, we need for public works. And to answer Councilman Kraus's question, these trucks are going to be on the road, we hope, for the next 10 years. So this is not throwing money out the window. A small portion of those funds are being used for the leases so we can have immediate relief. Now, with that immediate relief, we're talking, I think, $50,000, $60,000 tops. And this will be used as a pilot program almost for us, because maybe next year, maybe if the leasing this equipment works out, it might make more sense for us to do it that way. But one thing we know for sure are these vehicles that we are purchasing will be in our circulation for years to come. So I don't want people thinking that, we're going out and just spending a bunch of money to try to get the snow cleared this year. These are vehicles we desperately need for all aspects of public works, not just snow removal. So I wanted to be clear on that. Councilman Kraus, I want to thank you for referring me to the, ELA. I hope you don't regret it now that we're back, in my first day, I guess I'm not confirmed yet, but I know we're, so I hope you're okay with it and understand, and I want to thank you, Madam President, for, making the appointment. Brandon, I want to thank you. I know you were, given the task as to where are we going to find these vehicles? Where are we going to, purchase them at, and how we're going to do it? And when you look back as to these fully equipped 3,500 vehicles, with the plow, with the salt spreader on the back of it, I think it comes out to around $65,000 a piece, which is a really good price. So, whether it was lowest bid or you shopped around, I'm thrilled that you found it. And, it was a task that was thrown at you I feel, an emergency situation. So I'm glad you came up with the, the idea to shop around and get these vehicles on the street. That one thing I did want to point out, these new vehicles will not be showing up on the tracker. Correct?
It's actually a great question for Brandon.
Okay. Brandon, you don't even have to answer that. I'm not even, you can answer that, but I'm just saying, the tracker, I have many concerns, like Councilman Wilson goes on about the tracker. Okay. Whether it's trucks that are backing up hills at 5 miles an hour and not showing up on my tracker. But the bottom line is what people will see are vehicles and the roads plowed, and that's better than any tracker. But take the time, Brandon, if you want to answer that, please.
Sure, Councilman, and I can answer that pretty quickly. The 6 purchased vehicles will have the snowplow tracker equipment. That's part of the outfit. The leased vehicles will not.
Okay, great. Now, these leased vehicles, we're going to get these if approved, if council, agrees. These leased vehicles will be on the street first. So we'll have 6 vehicles. We'll split them up throughout the districts. And I want to be clear, it's not just the 4th district that has this issue. Many calls from coming into many other members about their roads not being plowed. So they will be evenly distributed. They're not all coming to the 4th district. I just want everybody to know that. Again, these leases, we can have them on the street, if everything goes well and we approve, I would say by the end of next week. The newer vehicles, as Director pointed out, they will be coming in, periodically. We'll have to equip them, we'll have to rig them, but, eventually it's all well needed. By this time next year, with the addition of my Public Works Division and these new vehicles, plus the 17 that we're waiting on, and I hope they come in by next winter. And in talking to Director Hornstein, he has some concerns about that. And being that we are having these manufactured, brings it my concern as well. So at least we're getting 6 now, and we're looking into a pilot program to lease some. But can you speak to, are these new vehicles, we rest assured these will be in next year? Because my first instinct was, let's call Chevy and tell them we needed these vehicles yesterday. But obviously supply chain issues and things like that hindered it. But can you speak to, will we have these vehicles by next winter?
We surely hope that we'll have them by next winter, and we're working really closely with the dealer we ordered them through, as well as our Ford representative who covers the northern region, to make sure that they get on the build list. And we do expect that they will be here by next winter.
Okay, good. And finally, I just want to say, Madam President and I were on the phone last night, and she, we were just talking through this a little bit. And she had mentioned, as to the procurement process and what's going to go on with that. And I said, well, you know what? I said, that's Jake Pollock's problem. So, and however it works, I do want to say, I'm asking, this is an emergency situation for me. Not just for me because of the hills, and somebody's going to go down a hill. Well, I mean, for my district, it's an emergency situation. I don't want to speak for all Pittsburgh is it an emergency or not? But for my district, I believe it is almost a crisis situation. So couldn't be more pleased with the efforts that you and Brandon and the administration put into securing the funding and looking for the funding. I highly encourage our council to pass this so we can get this moving. We won't have it for this snowstorm, but maybe for the next one. That's it. Thanks.
If I could just quickly pick up on that, Councilman, and Brandon explained this in further detail, but just for the sake of clarity, that procurement issue, the resolution, the way in which we are addressing that is by utilizing the purchasing consortiums, CoStars and Omnia respectively. That is, our membership in those consortiums allows us to use basically the bidding process or the procurement process that they front load to then purchase off of an inventory that's pre-cleared. So those procurement procedural concerns are addressed through our utilization of those purchasing consortiums in this case.
I had full confidence that you would find out how to work that out. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be supportive, like I said before, because I'm interested in solving this problem. But I do want to vote. But I just want to mention this because I think it's important. A couple things. One is the time frame of 2 months, that we're just going to give back the vehicles and then, that's going to be it. We're going to be this $500,000 around that we're spending.
The 2 months is for the six leased vehicles. The cost there is just under $60,000. The other 6 vehicles make up the bulk of that, the $390,000 worth of this, and those are the vehicles we'll own permanently.
Yeah. So, and then just to confirm, we are going to be able to minus that from the 12 million or the 13 million that was spent coming in. We're just going to, we'll own those ones, or we're just adding to the fleet, right?
We're just adding to the fleet. So those 6 vehicles will be 6 additional vehicles in addition to the ones we're waiting up for delivery on.
My only hesitation on all is that we haven't thoroughly looked at all the money that we spent on technology that we're not using. So like the GPS routes, and then also the salt spreader. Do we have do we have a plan to understand? Because I mean, that's not that old. We purchased it before I was on council, but I mean, how much money did we spend on the GPS and the routes and technology?
If I may, the GPS units, which will display the routes, will be perfectly functional once the new routes are loaded into them. It's a question of digitizing some of that information, optimizing it, and then placing it into onto the GPS. So it's not the case that we're starting over from scratch there. It's just changing the data that they will be displaying to the drivers. So just to maybe assuage part of your concern, we're not going to have to purchase anew the hardware or even the underlying technology. It's just
Yeah.
changing what's displayed. I don't know, because it obviously predated me, the extent to which there was an expenditure on the optimization process that produced the routes that weren't working. That predated this administration, predated me as OMB director, predated Director Hornstein as acting DPW director. So I apologize. I don't know the expenditure that went into that, and to the extent that we're doing that process again, there's probably some small expense related to that. But the bulk of the technology that you're referring to is still viable and will still be utilized once we load new routes into the system.
Okay, yeah. Do you see that happen this year or next year?
I am confident that it will be in place for next snow season. Whether it is in place before the end of this snow season, in some ways depends on us getting a break in the weather, because obviously the attention of DPW when there are snowstorms on the horizon is always to prepare for them, and then that means that somewhat longer term projects like that have to be deprioritized as we get ready for the coming storm.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to talk about this because without doing that full analysis, like I understand some people in, like Councilman Gross is, willing to, think down the road of when that project will be refunded, but still, it's still money that we're moving, and another project won't happen because of that.
Yeah.
So, so that's just my concern. I just want to make sure that we're gonna have a plan to use. I would expect it was, a large sum of money that we invested in technology, that we're still on track.
Yeah. Those plans are not being abandoned. They're just being refined.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Kraus? We'll wait to see if Councilman Kraus comes back. Until then, I have two quick questions. The 6 vehicles that we're leasing, do we have an option to purchase?
We do not have an option to purchase.
Could there be one?
I have to look into the contract a little more, but I don't believe that they offer the option to purchase. Their platform is to provide equipment on a rental basis, and they can do short time frames, long term.
Okay, so this is something that's separate and apart from the platform to actually purchase. This is a specific platform to just lease regardless of the amount of time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, and this is more so for the public's edification. Historically, the way we've plowed streets is your primary streets during the actual event of the snowstorm. Then and you may say this differently, that's why I'm saying it. Then the secondary streets within 24 hours of the end of the snowstorm. And then lastly, what I'm calling territory streets, which is sort of like the street that I live on. Is that still the case?
Generally speaking, yes. There's more complexity to that for a few reasons. So one is that we have different size vehicles that are optimal for servicing different size streets. We have, a lot of in DPW they call them hogs. Those are pickup size trucks, the things that a non CDL driver might drive. The drivers in our case are CDL drivers, but I'm saying a member of the public could purchase a truck of this size with a normal license. Is my point there. Those vehicles are best. The reason that we have them in our inventory is so that they can service smaller streets. And so as the vehicles are deployed, particularly in treacherous areas, steeply sloped places with narrow streets, I'm thinking of the south side slopes as only one example. Some of those vehicles will be deployed to smaller streets even at the beginning of the snow event, because that's what they're designed to service. So there's a bit of nuance to that point, but the primary focus is certainly on keeping primary roads and emergency routes open. So we make sure that we have enough vehicles to cover that first. And then once that's done, some of the smaller vehicles may be assigned to secondary and tertiary streets as warranted by the snow conditions. To your point about timing, again, yes, it is our objective to be consistently servicing the primary roadways during the snow event to keep for public safety reasons. To then, once the snow event ends, begin moving into the secondary and then the tertiary streets, and to have them cleared. I would say, given the age and condition of the fleet and the number of vehicles in the fleet, really a more realistic expectation now is 36 hours under optimal conditions. That's not the benchmark we would like to be at, but I would just say for the sake of candor that that's a more reasonable expectation until we are able to make some significant investments in the fleet.
Thank you. That's helpful. Councilman Kraus, did you?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I stepped away. It's just an active morning. I'm not sure if the question is more for Brandon. I think it is. It might be for Director. Am I misinformed to be acting on the assumption that these are used vehicles? Are they used or are they new?
The rental vehicles would be used.
The other vehicles are new. I
The
apologize.
purchase vehicles are new.
Are brand new. Okay, I just want to be acting on accurate information, and so I appreciate, because I was going to ask you if the new vehicles were used, what the age of the vehicle, mileage, and those kinds of things might be on the vehicle, because Councilman Coghill believes these will live in existence for 10 years. I'm not 100% sure that they will, but tell me, from your experience lifespan, what can we expect to get out of the vehicles, being that they're not just going to be limited to winter use, but they'll be put into service off season for other things? Is it closer to like maybe 5 to 7, depending on the use?
Depending on use, it could be lower, but we expect normally from our DPW pickup trucks similar to these, 8 to 10 years of useful life.
Good. Well, that raises my comfort level in terms of the purchase of the vehicles. Director Pollock, I still am struggling with using. Well, let me go back. Councilwoman Gross, I appreciate the offer to tidy up accounts. I really don't think that's necessary. But I appreciate you offering it. My goal here is to not begin to open the door to these kinds of purchases further down the road. I want, because we have such a rich tradition. I think it's beyond tradition. I think we're actually obligated legislatively to make investments that are long-standing investments when we use capital dollars, which is why I asked Brandon about the age of the vehicles, and hearing his professionalism say to me that we can get 7 to 10 out of here. My comfort level is significantly elevated in the purchase. But Director, I would hope that in a friendly way, I could challenge you to see if by Tuesday we could find an alternate source from operating for the lease vehicles. And I know that might be looking like I'm splitting hairs, but I would really, really, really like us to make clear distinction of whether they're pay-go or bond, that short-term acquisition or usage is an operating expense and not a capital expense. Even though I might be a little tight on that, I would appreciate if we could put a little bit of effort into finding the 59,000 out of operating. And I'd appreciate your assistance on that if you'd be willing to explore that.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thanks always for your professionalism, Director. I will be supportive today, but I would like to, or Director, we'll talk further about perhaps a different funding source for the rental property or the rental vehicles. Thank you. Thanks everybody for allowing me this time.
Thank you.
Oh, and one more thing, if I may, Mr. Chair, Councilman Coghill, I think you'll do wonders for the Equipment Leasing Authority. I would not have asked our president or lobbied our president for you to take that position. I think you will be, you'll be very good. I'm going to be completely honest. I do worry you like to, bulldoze, no pun intended, and I just, perhaps maybe I take a more cautioned approach, but you and I, we work together very well. And I'm sure as you assume your position on the Equipment Leasing Authority Board, you and I can work together collectively, and hopefully I can share my, what we call experience, strength, and hope with you in your new position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Kraus, and your confidence means everything to me in that, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Third round, Councilman Wilson.
I just wanted to say happy Groundhog Day.
How appropriate to come from
Seeing
the north
no
side
further
representative.
discussion, all those,
Hey, Mr. Chair, before you call the vote, may I ask one really quick question?
yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Director Pollock, I'm reading some weather accounts of what is to be coming this weekend. You guys, I mean, you have really been tried by fire in terms of weather events this month so far, now going into February. And they look much more severe than what I was reading even a few hours ago. And a lot of it is around ice, accumulation of ice, and that just very, very shortly north of us, they are expecting even as high as 12 inches of snow. Some of the accounts are saying that we could even receive 7 inches our way. I only bring that up to say I would, and you have, and I appreciate it, if you just continue to keep the council abreast of what you're learning through the National Weather Service so that we can prepare as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Councilman. I will say that you are correct in your reading of the forecast, and the administration and DPW are going to be sharing additional information about that with the public later today as well. We are looking at freezing rain, then transitioning into snow on top of that, which creates treacherous conditions. And unfortunately, the timing couldn't be worse in terms of it falling in the very early morning, potentially. So there will be treacherous conditions later this week. DPW is mobilizing to address those. Unfortunately, rain preceding a freezing event and then a snow event is a very difficult condition to manage because you can't pre-treat the streets because the rain would wash the salt away. So we certainly would encourage everyone to exercise a great deal of caution while driving later this week until we're able to service the streets, which will be a unique challenge for our very hardworking and very dedicated DPW crews late this week and into the weekend.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. President Smith.
So I just want to be clear, I'm going to vote in favor because I received a message saying, yes, that the Equipment Leasing Authority has the opportunity to purchase equipment. I'm going to read it exactly word for word. Oftentimes with fluctuating costs, they can get vehicles a little under budget. Sometimes they cost more. So towards the end of the year, if we have enough to purchase another vehicle or vehicles with those savings, we will. And that doesn't come back to council for approval, but that also talks about what Councilwoman Gross talks about all the time, contracts coming back to us. So I think that that's something I'll work with you on to make sure that things do come back to us. So, but today I'll be able to vote in the affirmative, knowing that I feel a little bit more comfort level with this. So, and I just want to add, please, if we're expecting this snow event, please make sure that we use some enforcement for the sidewalks because we get a lot of complaints about the sidewalks not being enforced. We don't do anything we don't do our own sidewalks. We don't force other people to do the sidewalks. So I think the last time you did do them, you had some people doing the sidewalks. I hope that you do that again. I hope that we also use some enforcement power and the snow angels for people that need help.
We do mobilize the parks and construction crews within DPW to clear sidewalks and steps. Many of those individuals don't have the right kind of license to drive a snow plow, but they are available to do that other kind of work. And so yes, the transportation division, all of those folks are mobilized as available and to the greatest extent possible to clear the city's own sidewalks and steps and pathways. I hear your point about enforcement of homeowner responsibility for sidewalks. I will just note again for the record and for the public that it is a city code requirement that the sidewalk in front of your home is cleared within 24 hours at the end of the snow event.
within 24 hours, but if you're an able body, please be courteous and think of other people and get out and clean it. And if you have a neighbor who can't, please, try to help them too. So thank you very much for all your work, and thank you to our crews who work so hard 24 hours a day around the clock. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All four bills receive an affirmative recommendation. We're going to go to Bill 46 next.
Bill 46, resolution authorizing a corporation agreement or agreements, providing for the transfer of fund not to exceed $12,124,169 to the City Equipment Leasing Authority for the purchase and leasing of vehicles, equipment and accessories, and equipment support infrastructure for use by the City of Pittsburgh departments.
Motion to amend by substitution.
Second.
Second.
Discussion?
Me.
No, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor
No, thank
say
you.
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill has been amended by substitution. Any further discussion on the bill?
Nope, thank you.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now go back to
Thank you,
Bill
Director.
40.
Bill 40, ordinance to either consent to or disapprove of proposed annexation of Wilkinsburg Borough pursuant to petition presented in the Court of Common Pleas.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
So wait, this is
Okay.
for the Wilkinsburg. I just want to say that I think if, I want to be clear, if we vote, if we want to disapprove, we vote aye.
Aye.
And if we want to approve, you vote no. So it's, if you, of the consent, if you want to consent, I'm sorry, to the annexation of Wilkinsburg Borough pursuant to the petition presented at the Court of Common Pleas. I just want to be clear that we've had some meetings regarding Wilkinsburg. And although we've been able to work through some concerns, I absolutely am not supportive. I don't want anybody to think that this is the way that they're going to work with council, is by coming to us forcefully with attorneys, with a court order. But we were able to work together, calling a meeting of everyone coming together. And Reverend Burgess is willing to work with the county exec over the next year to get to a place where we're getting information and having a clear public process for any type of annexation, whether it's with Wilkinsburg or anyone else in the future. So for me, you need a lot of convincing before I will ever vote yes. I need to know how it's going to affect, southwest and north of the city of Pittsburgh. I need people to understand and start investing in our side of town. Or I will be the opposite. Instead of being supportive, I'll be the opposite. But I will, but I do think that we're giving them a chance to start showing what they're going to do on our side of town and how it's going to be, how something like this could be beneficial or not. But so today, I put this in so that we can say, no, this is not the way you're going to work with the city of Pittsburgh and city council. Our rules are going to be respected because we represent the people.
Thank you. I have Councilman Coghill, followed by Councilman Wilson, and then Councilman O'Connor.
Okay.
And may I be on to council or Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So just let me start by saying, had this been a week ago, I would have been motioning to prolong our vote on this. I felt it was rushed. Certainly, I know in talking to all the council members, even April 5th, that deadline is probably not sufficient enough time to gather the information. I agree with that. I think that's the will of the council. However, I felt it was okay. Today we start gathering the facts about it. I'm really looking forward to seeing some, not setting the emotion aside about the whole thing and actually getting some facts on it. It might not be the marriage that some of us were looking for, but I think it's an engagement today. So I am not going to prolong the vote on Tuesday. I'm fine with not making the motion, but I really want council engaged whether, starting today with the facts and figures, whether we vote this through on Tuesday or whether we vote it through in January, matters not to me. The fact is, I want to gather the facts. I myself want to see them, and I hope we can learn and start moving down the path where this makes sense for everybody. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson.
So there's a post agenda today.
There is.
So we're going to take the preliminary vote. So I don't know. I just think that's bad practice. Why wouldn't we hold it to take it after the post agenda?
Can I answer that?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
post agendas can be scheduled for any matter at any time. They don't necessarily have to directly correspond with an actual bill or a vote. So we could vote this now and have two post agendas on Wilkinsburg over the next 2 months. Like, they don't necessarily always
Have lots of
correspond,
them.
was my answer.
Yeah, I just want to say I don't disagree with, everything that's happened in the past 2 days or 24 hours or whatever, but just, in my mind, it makes sense to in any case, even if that is, we could, just do a post agenda whenever, on a bill.
The other point of clarity is we're also having the post agenda prior to the actual vote.
Yeah, I understand.
It's a recommendation.
I understand.
So
And we asked for it to be scheduled before this vote today. So I want to be very clear. It's not like we scheduled the vote and then we scheduled the vote and then asked for the post agenda to be scheduled before the vote. But this is when they wanted to have it. So it wasn't as if we didn't attempt to have the post agenda in advance. But having said that, it's still, to me, it's the message we want to send. This is not the way you're going to work with city council. If you want to work with us, you're going to come and talk with us and be respectful. And we'll 9 times out of 10, we try to work towards a solution. But we're not going to work and under a gun like this, and under this kind of pressure.
Right. So if we're going to vote for this, I'll just make my comment about the vote that I'm going to take. So, this doesn't come up that often. I continue to reference about Allegheny City, was the last one to be annexed. But that one was different. I just want to state for the public, that one was different. That one was literally the total vote of Pittsburgh and also Allegheny City. That was a different process. That is why everyone in Allegheny City, which is now the north side, probably, has a little reminder about that takeover. So, in this case, it would be the citizens, the voters, the citizens of Wilkinsburg that would take the vote solely, in their own ballot. And I was interested to have that conversation. And it sounds like we are going to continue the conversation. There has been a lot of conversation with the people that were very much, you even said that you were totally for it, but, much more in favor. So I was on the end of, I had a lot of questions to ask and to really get to the understanding of how this benefits the city. If they would vote in favor of it, the citizens of Wilkinsburg, how it would benefit Wilkinsburg if that was the case, because we would have to accept whatever they voted for. So in light of other decisions that I've made, and me having an internal rule for myself that I wouldn't abstain, I'm gonna, vote with my other colleagues in terms of, the wishes of council to vote yes to disapprove. But I am certainly interested in shared services, expanding the boundaries of Pittsburgh. And, in the light of the bridge, the horrific, event that happened to the Fern Hollow Bridge and everyone that was affected, this is an opportunity to once state again of how we don't have the population and the tax base to really maintain what we have. We had 700,000 people in Pittsburgh. Now we're fighting to have 300,000 people. I hate that the conversation of Wilkinsburg is tied to we could increase we could increase population. We just added Wilkinsburg to the city of Pittsburgh. I think the conversation should be, if we focused on the vacant and abandoned housing problem in Pittsburgh more, literally every day, we focused on that. We increased, we did it in the right way. We did it appropriate. We included everyone. We talked about that every day. We will be able to increase the population and we will be able to get more done as a city of Pittsburgh. So although I am interested to, expand the boundaries of Pittsburgh, I just want to make that known that like this has been taking up a lot of oxygen, but really what we need to focus on is this vacant abandoned housing problem. And I'm very gracious of council to point me to the land bank and land use. And want to work with other members to solve that. And that's what I'll be doing from, hopefully spending most of my time from here on out to make sure that we're adding population. We should literally call it Operation Population. Like in the right way. I hate to be corny, but that's just what it is. I have nothing further to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman O'Connor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to state on record, obviously, I was supportive back in June and, the willingness for council to hear more details. I fully understand it. I understand that I believe this is a good thing for everybody. But down the road, I understand we need some more time. And from what I'm hearing, hopefully we will get this done sooner rather than later. But at this point, I understand my colleagues need to vote, I guess, yes, whereas I'm going to vote no today, just because looking at the information, and I would assume that half of the Wilkinsburg, when it does occur, would be in Reverend Burgess's district, and I would have a portion of it as well. So, looking forward to that when it does occur, but just thank the leadership and council for going through this process, talking to everybody, setting up meetings, Councilman Coghill for hosting the post agenda later today, but I'll be voting no, knowing that this is going to come back around and that hopefully at that point, council will be more comfortable in voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kraus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to try to be polite in my remarks. I'll quote Judge Judy, who would probably be a little more forceful than what I'm going to be right now, but I'm softening the terminology. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. There's one purpose in mind in the acquisition of Wilkinsburg, and that is to acquire land. A development corporation against the wishes of the duly elected body wishes to see this happen for one reason and one reason only, and that is development. And Wilkinsburg being positioned next to East Liberty, the continuation of the development that took place in East Liberty, it gives it a pathway to expand into Wilkinsburg. Anyone out there that is pretending or projecting a statement that this is somehow humanitarian in nature and we are here to help and assist and serve the disadvantaged people of Wilkinsburg is peeing on your leg and telling you it's raining. This is about land acquisition. This is about banks that will come into enormous sums of money once this acquisition or merger were to take place. We can look forward, perhaps not, well, certainly not in my time servicing on the council, and maybe not even in my lifetime, but in the next 10, 15, or 20 years, I'm going to argue what we will see is no longer Wilkinsburg, but it will be East Liberty 2.0. And while I applaud a lot of the changes that took place in East Liberty, not all were good by any means, And I truly believe that we had learned the lesson, that it was a new day. We were going to look at development in a completely different light, and that our focus was not going to be big, high-end luxury development, but rather middle income, sustainable development that served the residents, our bread and butter constituency, to have higher quality of life and better opportunity. And that is not what this is about. And I don't care who's preaching that it's something different. It isn't. Land brings wealth and power for as old as mankind is. And that's exactly what this is about. And those that advocate for this, I strongly believe that high-end and luxury development is still the way that we're supposed to be going here in Pittsburgh. And I adamantly reject it, and I adamantly refuse it. And I feel an obligation to protect the bread and butter constituency of the municipality or the borough of Wilkinsburg, and to respect their duly elected body. To reject this and to reject the notion that a development corporation is going to act in the best interest of existing residents of Wilkinsburg. So I will vote yes to deny annexation today. Thank you.
Thank you, President Smith.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam President, may I say one other thing? I apologize. That by agreeing to this, we will pledge our commitment to sucking the very life out of already existing underserved neighborhoods in the city, and many of them existing southwest of the river. And I'm sure Council President Smith is going to take this in a much bigger direction than I will. But when I look at the need for hilltop neighborhoods that I represent, that have been historically disinvested in for generations, to go up there and say that, yes, you know what, I voted to take resources away from you. I would hide my head in shame. I would tell them they should vote me out if I were to be complicit in the organized removal of resources that they not just desperately need, but damn it, they deserve. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Councilman. I just want to say I agree with almost everything you said, except for I do want to see wealth and development happen across the city of Pittsburgh, but I also want to see it benefiting the people that need it the most, who have been forgotten in many of the developments. I think it's incumbent upon us, no matter what process and what steps we take moving forward, for this council and for others, any agreements, anything that comes to play, we have to make sure that we're working, one, with a very public community process. We have to work with both school districts, and we have to work with the elected bodies on both sides. And that's the next piece of legislation that we have. But I want to say that I think it also has to include some affordable housing development. And you know, when we talk about having the city county mergers and things that benefit, you know, the region, it always seems like we're talking about what's benefiting somebody else, but we're not talking a lot about what's benefiting Pittsburgh. What is coming to Pittsburgh that we're going to get other than residents? What are we getting in terms of services? Like, we need help with snow removal. I don't see anybody coming in with their plows, clearing our roads. I don't see the county doing anything more than the roads that are county roads. I think those are conversations we have to have. How are you also benefiting the city in addition to residents? and population's great, but I don't want to push people out of their neighborhood so that we get a number somewhere. I want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to not repeat the mistakes of the Hill District, the mistakes of East Liberty, and in other neighborhoods, and Fairywood in my district. I've seen it happen time and time again, where we're pushing people out of their neighborhoods. And yet we always say every time, oh, it's so bad. It's so sad what we're doing. But then we do it again because money does talk. And I mean, it is not okay for us to do this without having a real conversation and bringing people to the table that actually need help. Let's do this. If you're going to do it, let's do it right, to make sure that we're bringing all stakeholders and taking care of all stakeholders and not just pushing people out of their home again so somebody can make some money. And let's make sure that the people there are part of the developments, part of any job opportunities. I mean, significantly and seriously, without coming up with excuses as to why they couldn't work on the job site, and why we had to go elsewhere. And let's make sure that we're working with our unions and everybody as partners in this whole thing moving forward. But I will say, I'm not opposed to considering any merger and annexations, but I am also going to ask every time, what is in it for North, South, and West, especially when we are pushing more and more people. If you look at a map of the city of Pittsburgh and the housing that's here, if you look in the East End, almost all of it is either upscale or low scale. I mean, or affordable, well, not even affordable anymore. But there's not a lot of middle class. And it's the middle class that's paying the taxes in the city of Pittsburgh. It's the middle class, and almost all of them are southwest of the river. It's almost the entire map is middle class. So when we keep ignoring them and keep wondering why they're moving out of the city of Pittsburgh, when you talk about keeping residents here, you're going to lose your middle class base if you don't do something southwest of the river. And so I'm just going to say over and over again, don't tell me that it's for the city of Pittsburgh. In case you don't remember, Southwest Pittsburgh is part of the city of Pittsburgh, and so is the North. And it is time that we are part of this equation. You can't keep expanding the East End and expect to stabilize our city. You're actually doing quite the opposite. So with that said, as long as we're talking about any type of this process, you better bring us to the table, and you better have a plan for what you're going to do for Southwest Pittsburgh, or I'm going to blow it up every time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also will be voting aye to disapprove. As I've said before in the discussions on this issue and at the post agenda, I've only heard so far emotional testimony from both sides. And this is not, I urged the proponents at the Development Corporation to not submit this appeal to the courts, because 90 days is not enough time. And that is all we have now, because they did move forward and submit their petition to the Common Pleas Court, and the court did issue his order to City Council. We don't know what happens with the Wilkinsburg Penn Joint Municipal Water Authority. We have nothing. We have no information. People of Pittsburgh have no information. The people of Wilkinsburg have no information. We've yet to see, I think we're just starting to see numbers of analysis about the school district. We don't know about bond debt. We don't know about pension debt. We don't know significantly, I think, to Mr. Krause's point, and that I have also mentioned before, we really, I think, need to see an analysis of real estate holdings in Wilkinsburg to really suss out who will be benefiting and who will be paying in this specific type of annexation, right? I do believe there are significant real estate interests that probably are behind this initiative, and we should reveal them. We should research and find out who they are, and so that we can really see who the actors are in this situation. And in so doing, I think it will help inform both this body and the Wilkinsburg Council what steps need to be put into place before either annexation or merger to protect their citizens, their vulnerable citizens, to reinvest in the actual people of Wilkinsburg, and not just have a land grab and possible wealth grab, which is what it's looking like now. And so I will absolutely vehemently be voting yes to disapprove today. Thank you.
Thank you. Before going to second round, Councilwoman Strasburger, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I had the same concerns as, I mean, I echo a lot of what I've heard today about my concerns about the process thus far, but really what I was gonna focus on was my concerns that are similar to Councilman Wilson's, that generally, as a rule, I don't like to move on a bill until we've had the post agenda. I like to do our research first, but given the agreement and the opportunity that everyone has had to sort of reach an agreement for a year-long investigation is not the right word, a year-long fact-finding task force, then I am more comfortable with moving ahead with a preliminary vote today for before the post agenda this afternoon, with the post agenda being the first of what I expect to be many, many fact-finding pursuits. So I'm comfortable with voting aye today in favor of disapproving proposal and finding a lot more information over the next year. Thank you.
Thank you. So before going to second round with Councilman Coghill, Councilman Burgess?
I'll be very, very brief. I'll talk a lot more in a minute at a press conference. But basically, and I want to thank our president, who has led, I think, this process in a very, very not only professional, but a very insightful way. And so today we are going to do two different things. One, we're going to say that this process, which we did not initiate and were not a participant in, was not the way to interact with council. Secondly, we're going to initiate a process that's council-led, which is our responsibility, to find facts and to lay all the issues on the table.
To develop Southwest.
And I have said privately, I'll say it now, that one of the things that has to be primary is anti-gentrification, anti-displacement activity, and there needs to be an understanding. I have 4 kids, right? And each of the kids took more expenses in the household, right? It was different having 1 kid than having 2 kids, different than having 3 kids. And when my daughter came, because my wife gave her everything, it was different. And so, but that doesn't mean that you can't take care of 4 children versus 1. And so I'm going to say that I intend, after this process, having looked at most of the preliminary information, unless there are bombshells, which I do not expect, where, and I've been very persuaded and, by Councilwoman Gross's comments. I think she's been spot on in terms of the information that we need and the boxes that need to be checked. I've been very persuaded by that. And that's what I'm gonna be looking for, exactly the things that you've listed. I think that's right. I have had some access to the data. I think it is in the best interest of both municipalities. We are already, in many ways, annexed with Wilkinsburg. We've already began that process. We fight their fires, we pick up their garbage, and their children go to our secondary and high schools. They need, we can use their numbers, and they can use our services and our economic muscle. So it is my intent to say no now, but it's not yet. And then a year from now, exactly a year from now, I intend to vote yes, and have said that privately and soon publicly, to the annexation process. And so that's sort of my position. And I'll talk more about that. But I have also committed to the president that we will use every influence we have to make things jump southwest of the rivers. We've been a little bit fortunate of being able to bring development into the 9th Council District. We need to bring that same kind of commitment, that same kind of energy into some places that are.
Minus the gentrification. Minus the
It
gentrification.
also can be used, and the same strategies can be used southwest of the river, and we'll do everything we can to help the president do that. So I will be voting yes in favor of disapproval, but with the intention of annexing, of voting yes 12 months from now.
Thank you. For my 2 cents, one, I also agree with everything Councilwoman Gross laid out in terms of what we need to do over the next year to determine whether or not this makes sense. I also found Councilman Kraus's argument very, very interesting, because I don't think he's wrong, but I don't think it means that two opposing things can also be true, right? So I don't think he's wrong, and Councilwoman Gross, you said it as well. I don't think either are wrong, that there are absolutely developmental interests involved here, right? Don't disagree with that at all. But it also doesn't mean that if you said to a majority African-American neighborhood that by doing this, I will immediately increase the value in your home while lowering your taxes, that the vast majority of them would not sign up for that deal, right? It also doesn't mean that in some form or fashion, this could not potentially be good for the city of Pittsburgh, that by gaining additional population, by gaining additional dollars, releases or doesn't necessarily put at jeopardy current federal dollars that are potentially at jeopardy if we continue to lose population, right? So there are potential win-wins here, while also acknowledging that there's some private interests who gain, the banks in particular, who absolutely stand to gain above and beyond even the smaller benefits for the people, right? So I just think, to everyone's point, we need to take a year to try to figure out what that looks like. To Councilman Wilson's point, we have to take a year to figure out if we're currently putting $10 million into a housing opportunity fund to deal with the housing that Councilman Kraus and Councilman Wilson spoke of, what does that now mean to now add 2 more square miles with a real estate portfolio that could absolutely suck up that $10 million, right? It's like, what does all that sort of look like for us as we move forward, is sort of the work that we have to do over the course of the next year to determine whether or not this does or does not make sense for us. I'll leave my opinion to the side of whether or not it does, but we have to do that work. Second round, Councilman Coghill.
Thank you. Just a little fun fact for you. Neighborhood I grew up in, Beachview, was annexed by Pittsburgh many, many years ago, I believe, before even.
See why annexation is not a good thing?
Boy, did I just set you up? That's funny. That's funny.
You set
Very good. Very good. I applaud even when it's at my expense, a good laugh, okay? So, but I did want to comment on just a couple of things that were brought up. Number one, when it comes down to, is this going to be the next Bakery Square? You know what? I wouldn't vote for this. And I want to find out the facts as well. And when we talk about affordable housing, and I know Councilwoman Gross, this is her avenue. I would say you put her along with Councilman Burgess together, because there's 60+% of renters in Wilkinsburg. It's absolutely vital that we keep the people. And it's not the land, it's not the development. For me, it's the people. I look at it like this. It's a necessity for Wilkinsburg in the position they're in, but it's also an opportunity for Pittsburgh. So, and a lot more will come out later. But what I'm trying to say is we're starting anew today. I fully expect this council to vote this current April 5th date down on Tuesday. And I think I'm comfortable with that. I think the people who are promoting this annexation are comfortable with that, because we're setting down a new path. So I hope all the tension is gone and lifted, and anxiety as to who's for it and who's not. We will take it up next January, and today will be the beginning of gathering those facts. I look forward to at least starting down that road and, finding out the information that we need to make an educated decision. And I agree with most of you. 2 months is probably too tight at this time to vote this through. So I will still be voting no for it today, because we should have started earlier and I didn't like the time frame put on, but I'm voting with a new spirit as to new cooperation and looking at this thing thoroughly and having that opportunity. And as Councilwoman Strasburger said, not one, maybe 2, 3, 4 post agendas held by some other members, but today will be the start of it. We look forward to it, and more will come out, of course, in a little bit, and we'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson.
I just want to ask the question of what that means after we do all this investigative work to see that if the city of Pittsburgh is, ready to vote in favor of the annexation, that this requires a whole nother petition to be circulated.
That is correct.
So that we're then, like, throughout this process, is it expected that the council would then ask for that petition to be circulated? What's,
You wait for the next bill. That'll be clear.
okay,
It's in the next bill.
okay.
Wait for, if you don't mind, wait for a minute. That information will come out in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, but may I jump in real quick? Councilman Wilson, the idea, the framework that we had set forth right now is, and it will be explained, we'll have an attorney there later at the post agenda, but the process has to be the same. It's an annexation. We cannot pursue that. They have to pursue it. Once they pursue it, then we put it in their hands. And I hope, we get to a point where they can vote on it next spring. But yeah, so hopefully that'll answer your questions later.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I have third or second round, whatever round we're on?
Sure. Councilman Kraus?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Just to dispel any confusion around voting before a post agenda, when Councilman Coghill brought the idea of the post agenda forward, I was supportive and seconded his motion, and made it clear that the council wishes to vote, and that there was ample opportunity. I think it was a little over 2 weeks, maybe even a little bit longer, in which the post agenda could be scheduled. I'm not certain, looking at the invited list for this afternoon's post agenda, that anything came in today in terms of making the argument that wouldn't have come in yesterday, and had the post agenda held Tuesday or even Monday. Looking at the list for the post agenda this afternoon of invitees, I see the Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation. I see Dean Kaplan, our president of the firefighters, or president of the Fraternal Order of Police, representative from school board, a solicitor, Ira Weiss, law department solicitor, and real estate agents. I see no one there representing mom and pop and everyday Wilkinsburg citizen that the development corporation likes to argue they are there to protect. But no one from there has been invited to tell the everyman story of what this could or could not mean for Wilkinsburg. And to take it into the realm of increased population and what that could mean to us on a much higher elevated level, I challenge who the population then will be. Will there be massive displacement? And will we increase population by people that come in to inhabit new development? I would love to see someone address that specifically. If we're talking about purposefully and with intent, servicing and assisting existing residents in Wilkinsburg with being able to stay in their homes and in their neighborhoods, that's one argument. If the argument is increasing population by creating new development, displacing already existing residents to bring new people in and argue that that's population increase, I argue that's folly. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would simply say, Councilman Kraus, I guess my question is there the ability to potentially do both?
I sincerely hope.
Yeah, because I mean, the reality is, to your point, Councilman, what we've seen in the city is increased development, new residents coming in, and a continual loss in population, mostly of Black citizens, because they simply cannot afford to stay. And that's not what we want to see happen with Wilkinsburg. And so the question is, over the course of a year, can you intentionally plan to help preserve them, to your point, Councilman, keep them in their homes while also potentially benefiting the city with the increase in population? That's sort of the short sum of it, but that's my thinking of it.
Yeah, and if you'll permit interrogatory between us, I would argue and challenge us, let's do that in Knoxville and Beltsville. I'd love to do a prototype there and see where that takes us. There's something to be said for taking care of our own. I would love to challenge the council to launch a prototype and see if that isn't something that we can do in neighborhoods like Bells Hooper and Knoxville and Allentown. But I appreciate your time and allowing me to make my comments today.
No, and I agree with you 100%, Councilman, and time will tell whether or not I'm successful. But in the Hill District, I'm trying to do that. Like, I'm actually trying to have my cake and eat it too by developing the Lower Hill, but using the tax revenue currently that has been loaned to us by a bank that is going to come in through that development to begin fixing up residents' homes and building out their businesses now, so that when the Lower Hill is developed, they actually benefit as opposed to being displaced. I don't know if I'll be successful. That's my hope. But that's one initiative to try to do both, and we'll see what happens.
But I trust your judgment, Councilman, and you're extremely talented in that regard. And if anyone can do that, you can. And I believe you will be successful in that.
Thank you. Also, Councilman Coghill, just so you know, I have a pre-existing 1:30 appointment, so I won't be at your post agenda today.
Yeah.
But I will absolutely watch it so that I get all the information that you bring to the table.
That's great. And can I just add, I know Councilman Kraus pointed out, it seemed to be all pro. Well, the bottom line is this is a fact-finding post agenda, period. It happens to be that the CDC did hire PFM, who did the financial analysis. I don't care who hired them, tell you the truth, but they have an analysis for us. And this is strictly a fact finding. This is a not who's for, who's against meeting. We're past that. We're moving on, and we're looking forward to next year.
Thank you. With
And
Councilman.
I have my last comments. I just want to say that I do want to thank you, Councilman, for working with us on this. But I do care that and I think you'll hear a little bit more in the next piece of legislation, that the CDC will not be part moving forward of some of this stuff. And that's what I have in an email. I'm hoping that's correct. That it is going to be driven by the elected bodies on both Wilkinsburg and City Council, and by the residents of both of that we both represent. And as I mentioned, it's not as if I want to not see development occur. I want to see people not pushed out because of it. So I think that there's a lot of conversations that have to happen. And so I'll shut up for this one because we have the next bill coming up regarding the process. Thank you.
So,
Mr. Chair, will you permit?
Councilman Kraus.
Yeah, thank you. I'm wound up today. I'm a little dismayed at the ambivalence of going against the wishes of a duly elected body. They've been adamantly opposed to this. And I want to, like I said this morning regarding the Equipment Leasing Authority, I want to respect the process. I want to respect those that were put in place by the electorate to make these kinds of choices and decisions, and to side with a developer against the wishes of the duly elected body gives me great pause. And I think if that were happening to us as an elected body, we'd be furious. We would be absolutely furious. And I'd like to channel some of that fury to the situation where a development corporation can supersede the wishes of an elected body. Thank you. And I promise I'm done.
Thank you. So all those in favor of the disapproval of the proposed annexation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One in
Nay.
opposition?
No.
Two in opposition. Any abstentions? All right, seeing that, affirmative recommendation. Thank you. That takes us to Bill 50.
Thank you, everyone.
Bill 50, resolution authorizing the City of Pittsburgh Council to conduct investigations dealing with the legislative and administrative matters of whether or not unifications with other municipalities would be the desire of and in the best interest of the citizens of Pittsburgh.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second with discussion, please.
Thanks.
Discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Burgess has an amendment, and that I'd rather discuss after we pass the amendment. Is that okay?
So after working closely with our solicitor under the direction of our president, we craft this amendment, and after conversations with all stakeholders, this amendment has been crafted that is really a collection of interest in one document. And so I will motion to amend, and then if allowed, walk you briefly, quickly, because it's not very difficult to understand through it. Motion to amend.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment.
The amendment actually, and the changes are underlined, but there really does three things, basically. One, it sets up a process of any future annexations, merger. It gives council now will lead this process, right? It sets up a process for us to do it. And so the first step of that is to set up an investigation arm of the council. So council now will be empowered after this legislation. If the president deems it, we will be empowered to initiate the investigation of Wilkinsburg. And then that initial investigation will come up with a template similar to what Councilwoman Gross was saying, which I was very, very, very much taken by her words, that we need to set up an external template of all the interests we would have to investigate to figure out what it is, and that would be known by council on the front end. These are the areas, and the council would have an opportunity to participate. These are the areas, water and sewer, infrastructure, home ownership, whatever those things are. Council would have a chance to participate in that process. It would be interactive with council, and it would be led by the finance chair. And then the president would appoint the other members, up to 4. Usually people whose district, because this is, although we're starting with Wilkinsburg, is a process for all annexations moving forward. And then within 6 months, council would receive a report to talk about that impact, and it's a little bit more detailed, and it gives the clerk, it allows some money to be set aside for the use of that special committee. I think those are the big bullet points.
So I just want to be clear, all you did was you were supposed to do was change to just say, we're going to focus on Wilkinsburg first.
Yes.
And then all the other things we had in place were supposed to remain, including having all members of council involved, not just 3.
Well,
And this one says 3, not 4.
It says 3 others other than the finance chair. So that's
Okay.
the point, though, is
Could you come to this?
and it can be changed. I'm not in a hurry, but that's the idea of it is to the process. We can, and I have time either hold it, doesn't matter to me. But the idea is to initiate the investigation and to do the fact findings. That's my interest, and I am open to. We took a crack at it with this.
I just want to be clear, it's not a hostile amendment.
No,
We did talk about it, so I don't want to maybe think that, but I do want to make sure that all members are included and involved and engaged in this process. So can you talk a little bit about how we can make sure that happens? Introduce yourself for the public and.
Dan Friedson, solicitor to counsel for the city of Pittsburgh. And so when they've been saying thus solicitor, our solicitor, they meant me, not the law department, to be clear. So this was basically a listening exercise more than anything, where we did try to capture every council person's concerns, and everybody was supposed to have gotten something, if you will, in this. So to that end, from the beginning, I think all council people were involved in the birth of this particular resolution. But what happens is the special committee does their investigation, brings information to council as a body, and then council as a body is the ultimate decision maker. It's not like there'll be 3 members of council making the decision for the rest of you. They'll have to.
No, so
You have to give them the scope of their investigation. So this is where all of council has.
I just say I understand that, but initially what I asked for was that each member would be able to investigate under their committee and the things that they're charged with, and bring back a report to whomever it is I appoint, which we already discussed would be Councilman Lavelle under finance and law.
Gotcha. Well,
so
in section 8, then, if you look at the second paragraph or second sentence, There's, basically there'll be an impact report developed in concert with elected officials of the impacted municipality, school district, duly appointed members of municipal authorities. The second sentence there then says, prior to presentation to each standing committee, there shall be reasonable public process. So there'll still be more information than gathered to the public. And then that impact report is supposed to be communicated to each standing.
The idea that each standing committee would have a separate report of its impact.
Okay, okay.
So
As
that,
long as they're involved, I just don't want to do anything that excludes any member, especially because they do represent and oversee really important parts of the committee. Councilman Kraus, all the contracts that we'd have to consider, and Councilwoman Gross with intergovernmental affairs, and
Right. I think that once
Councilman
you, I'm sorry.
Wilson has land use and economic. I mean, there are important committees they represent.
I didn't want to flesh out everything because you all need to discuss that. And so the point you're bringing up right now is an excellent point. So once the special committee is formed, you guys develop the template. And so as part of your template, from what I'm hearing, is that you want to make sure that the standing committees each get a chance to submit questions, or even if you wanted to expand their powers to investigate. But as it is, I was trying to be conscientious of quorum and things like that might evoke other laws or other kinds of consequences, which is why I limited the special committee to only 3 members of council and said the advisory committee be no members of council, so that we, can continue to conduct our business in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order and all that other fun stuff. So that said, by all means, once you make a decision, if you make a decision, I'm not going to presume that you are, to pass this and form an investigative committee, then that would be part of your template. And maybe you would say, other municipalities that might be interested in being being Pittsburgh would have to present to our standing committees. That could be part of your process. Anybody else have any other questions about the architecture or anything else?
So I'll save the rest of my comments for the actual bill. But for this part, I want to thank you so much for working with us on all of this. And I want to thank our county exec, Rich Fitzgerald, Joanna Dovin, Reverend Burgess, and Councilman Lavelle for coming together to try to figure this out for what's in the best interest of the city of Pittsburgh in this region. Knowing that I felt differently than they did, I think that everybody coming together and you helping us with this legislation is really important. So I just want to thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Councilman Kraus, then Councilman Wilson, I believe.
Thank you. On the amendment, I had conversation with both President Smith and Councilman Burgess about my concerns about using the terminology of investigation, and that it almost sounds as if there is some interest in hostile takeover, and that we are going to come in and investigate if it is somehow advantageous for the city of Pittsburgh to overtake you. And my fears were not unfounded, because I got calls saying, well, you're going to take us over. I think many members may or may not realize I have a borough that sits right in the very center. We call it the donut of the 3rd Council District, that clearly raised concerns very quickly as, do you wish to investigate us and take us over? I would offer a friendly amendment if Councilman Burgess is to accept, and that would be to change the terminology of investigate to make inquiry. And I think maybe it's an easier, softer, gentler way of saying, this interests us. We think that there's some possibility here, would like to make inquiry as to perhaps this is beneficial. And Councilman, do you think you could find your way to substituting that language?
so the only reason we use investigation is because that is a power given to council by the Home Rule Charter. So it wasn't my pick. That's why we use the word. I have no problem with the changing of the word. You can call it whatever you want, but
I have a problem.
I'm just saying the reason we picked investigation is it is a power inherent in the Home Rule Charter that council can perform. And so that's why the word is picked. It wasn't to be, it was a technical word. It wasn't, I think maybe what we should do to split the baby is to use the word, and what's the word you want to use?
Word.
if we use that in parentheses next to investigation, if that would soften it for you, I would like to keep the investigation word because it shows the power of council and the authority of council to do it. But I think we could, in parentheses, put inquiry that would both soften it and make it clear what our interest is. Does that make some sense?
Can we hear from our
Anyway,
solicitor too?
that's why. I just want to tell.
Do you want to say something?
But I mean, first of all, Councilman Burgess asked Councilman Kraus a question, and I don't want to interrupt. Did you hear his question, Councilman Kraus?
Yeah, I did, but go ahead, please, Solicitor, go ahead.
So there's, with something that is enormous and creates so much responsibility, and you need the reliability of that information. Like, you need to be able to rely on that information. You don't want soft numbers that are spun. You want people to be able, if you ask for information, you don't want to have to sit there and wait for it forever. You want to be able to ask for that information, know that you're going to get it. And if you don't get it, you could subpoena them so that you can get that information. And that if they lie to you, they're in contempt of court in Allegheny County. And so we need the veracity part of it so that you're working on reliable numbers if you're going to, well, at least I should say, what I heard from council members was the concern for reliable information. So you don't have to do subpoenas. You don't have to do all that stuff. By all means.
Can I just point out too? that it also says-
Madam President, may I continue?
I want you to understand what's here. That's all.
I don't want to overspeak you. But Mr. Friedson, you amplify my concern and reservation. And forgive me, I'm trying to read as we have the discussion. If I can find comfort in the fact that these investigations are in reaction to petition from a municipality, township, or borough to the city of Pittsburgh, I could find a level of comfort with that terminology. If it doesn't spell out that it's initiated by a municipality, township, or borough asking the city of Pittsburgh for merger or annexation, it gives this appearance that we wish to perhaps at times take over in a hostile way through subpoena powers if necessary to get the information we wish if we want to see annexation or merger of a municipality, township, or borough. And I might just be being a little over cautionary, but we leave these things behind as legacy where we will move on. And this will remain as public record for all time. And others may have different interpretation of this than what our intent was.
Yeah. May I jump in for 1 second?
Hold on one. Yep. Was that a question for the solicitor?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. So there's nothing in this resolution that compels you to unify in any way, shape, or form with any organization. And so as also what I tried to do here was give you the freedom to make exactly that point, Councilman Kraus, and to work as a group to be like, this is the template. So if I were,
forgive me, Solicitor, verbally speaking, this is the template for, and that's where I need you to fill in the blank, for a township, municipality, or borough petitioning the city for merger or annexation. Then my comfort level is raised.
It's a template for how you want your investigations to look, right? It's a template setting forth a process. And so part of your concern would be addressed by making part of the template. We would only investigate people who asked us to, for example. And so that's the concern. If they didn't ask us to, then they got nothing to worry about.
But this doesn't limit us in any way. This almost appears to give the appearance of a get out of jail free card that if we think that we might have some interest, we ought to pursue a municipality, township, or borough for annexation or merger.
You'll have to vote on that though, right? As a group, this doesn't just give you carte blanche to investigate anybody without council action, right?
Of course. But again, as I said, we will not sit here for all time. We leave a legacy, we move on, and others take our position, and they may have different interpretation of the intent beyond what we intended.
It might be, I'm sorry. I just wanted to give you the freedom.
Councilman Kraus,
Yes.
The very first sentence, I'm just trying to think, this may put you at ease. So, resolution authorizing the city of Pittsburgh Council to conduct investigations dealing with the legislative and administrative matters of whether or not unification with, strike other municipalities, just say with the borough of Wilkinsburg would be the desire of and in the best interest of the city of Pittsburgh. Said investigation is only occurring because the citizens of Wilkinsburg put forth a petition.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate that. I'd even tighten it up a little bit more resolution authorizing City of Pittsburgh Council to conduct investigations dealing with the legislative and administrative matters of whether or not unification with the borough of Wilkinsburg would be the desire of, and with the borough of Wilkinsburg as petitioned would be in the desire of and in the best interest of the citizens of Pittsburgh. I could accept that.
Okay.
Mr. Burgess, could you find your way there?
Councilman Burgess had to step out. I did speak to him and he said whatever language we agreed upon, he would be supportive of.
If I may respond to that, it doesn't do anything for districts 1, 4, 3, so the southwest of the river conversation now is excluded from this resolution, if that's the case.
But I believe it's so easy to get into the weeds and not just stay in the moment in time. And the moment in time is the discussion of Wilkinsburg. And we can always take that in different directions if at another time we choose to do so. But this idea that we have to be all encompassing at this moment in time, I don't think is necessary. I could find my way. And look, I'm going to bow to the will of the body. If we don't make the changes, I'm not going to be able to support. I don't mean that as a threat by any means. Please don't take it that way. But I hope we can find our way to limit it to the council, or I'm sorry, the borough of Wilkinsburg as petitioned with the language that, or the striking of language that the chair offered. And I could find my way then to be comforted and to vote. I just worry about the legacy we leave behind and how others might interpret the powers that they believe we have to annex without petition.
May I direct your attention to section 2, which is the
Yes.
So subject 1 is exactly what you said. We're just looking into Wilkinsburg right now. And then B would require another vote of council to look at anything else. So future investigations into whether or not any other, right?
Yeah, I do understand.
Majority vote of council, either study or not.
Yeah, I understand that already, and I appreciate your attempt to clarify. But I understand that it would still come back to council. I can't find my way to be that broad in terminology. When at this moment in time, what's on our plate is the possible merger / annexation of Wilkinsburg at another time and place. And I'd like to keep it tailored tightly to that at this point in time.
All right. Councilman Kraus, are you done?
I am, unless when the time is appropriate, if members are acceptable, would you then offer that amendment and read it to the clerk for clarification and for input from members?
Yes. Councilman Wilson? No? Okay. I had Councilman Coghill next.
No, I just want to make a quick comment. I listened, I heard about half about what Councilman Kraus was saying. Hopefully this will clarify. If not now, we will clarify it at the post agenda. But Pittsburgh is not allowed to pursue Mount Oliver or any other municipalities. The municipality has to come to Pittsburgh by law in order to, to keep us from gobbling up territory and ground, so that will be stated later. I think the attorneys that will be joining us will be here. And I don't know if that answers the questions that were concerns that Councilman Kraus had, but
City second
that's what I
class.
wanted to say. Thank you.
This is second class.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, can you explain that why? Because I want people to understand why, because that is a really good point. Thank you, Councilman.
As you will hear at the post agenda, this as Councilman Coghill very accurately articulated, the city is we're a second-class city. So the power of merger, the way that most people think of it, and I did misspeak at the public hearing when I said, there's other ways to merge. I should have said unifications. Because we're a city that's, I was just talking because there's a common lay person's conversation. I was just trying to communicate information. But he's right. There's the city of Pittsburgh as a second-class city, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania cannot just take over some other territory. We do not have the power to do that. If we were a third-class city, if we were a city of, any other, but first-class cities, which is Philadelphia, and second-class cities, which are Pittsburgh, and these are classes based on population. We can't do the merger. Like the way that would calculate in the people's minds that might be afraid that Pittsburgh's coming to take them over. It would have to be that then we would be merging into Mount Oliver, right? That we would become Mount Oliver. The way that would work out, it wouldn't be the other way. We couldn't take over a municipality and then still be the city of Pittsburgh. And that's ridiculous. We're not going to do that. We're going to stay the city of Pittsburgh. So the only way it could really work is, if we were doing agreement, the reason this is a unifications and not an annex and merger proposal is maybe taking over just the school districts makes sense. Or like in Wilkinsburg, we do trash, we do fire, we do some of the schools, not all the schools.
We're done.
It kind of depends on what the needs are and the desires are of the citizens of Pittsburgh as it relates to these other territories or portions thereof. And it might be that in the course of your investigation with Wilkinsburg, that it's not financially feasible to just do Wilkinsburg without doing some other territory or some other place. So I don't have a horse in the race. This is up to you. I tried to provide you the resolution that had enough flexibility for you guys to continue to tailor it as you move down the road, because I do think that every opportunity or inquiry into any kind of unification is going to require a fresh vote of council and for you guys to develop a template and a framework for which you would like to pursue it. But this puts the power right back into your hands, Councilman Kraus. By all means, if you decide to look at something, when the place to put the checks and balances is in how you're going to do the template.
I lost track. Do I have the floor or does another member have the floor?
Council, you succeed. You gave up the floor. Councilman Coghill had the floor. Councilman Coghill is no longer in chambers. And so it's now back to any member wishing to make comment.
May I register an aye vote for the remaining bills?
So before you can't leave.
Who left?
We don't have quorum if you leave.
4, 5. Bruce, yes, you do.
Well,
Yes, you
Bruce
do.
is actually still here, so we
You
would
still
have.
do. You have a quorum.
But I appreciate the urgency of the press conference, but there is work to be done.
I'm leaving.
So, Mr. Chair, may I then, or not? So, just in response to the solicitor's remarks, under Section 4 to establish process, the preliminary step of the investigation is to develop a template for the due process owed to council and the citizens of Pittsburgh to consider whether or not any unification efforts should be pursued at all, by whom it doesn't clarify, and if so, how and when. And the preliminary step is completed upon a communication by council. I don't understand what the preliminary step is completed by a communication by council. A communication to council from a municipality, township, or borough wishing to petition for annexation or merger is different from the preliminary step is completed upon a communication by council.
With all due respect, Mr. Chair, I'd like to call the vote. Yes, call the question. Thank you. With all due respect, Councilman, I'm sorry, I apologize, but we have a tight schedule.
And I appreciate that. And again, as I said, we leave a legacy.
I have formally called the question.
I can't hear you, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, my mic was off. Councilwoman Gross called the question on the bill, which isn't debatable. Therefore, we actually have to vote. And right now, we're voting on the amendment.
Right.
So all those in favor say aye.
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 And I'll register a no.
One in opposition. The bill is now amended. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote no on the bill as well, please.
One in opposition, affirmative recommendation. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, now I need a motion to approve the invoices.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Invoices are approved. Need a motion to approve the interdepartmental transfers.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Transfers are approved. Need a motion to approve the P card.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
P cards are approved. That takes us to Human Resources Committee chaired by Councilman Kraus. One new paper, Bill 45.
Bill 45, resolution providing that the city enter into a memorandum of agreement and/or contract with the Corporation of National and Community Service for the purpose of obtaining AmeriCorps Vista members to work with staff from city departments on strategic projects and research for a sum not to exceed $60,000 over 3 years.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Need a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, Councilman Kraus?
Great. Is the director here to talk a little bit about the AmeriCorps Vista program?
I don't believe so, Councilman.
Then I'm willing to leave it open and go further into the agenda and wait till the director or her designee is available. Thank you.
Just double checking to make sure I don't see either one. Okay. So that bill will stay on the table. That will take us to Land Use Economic Development Committee chaired by Councilman Wilson. One deferred paper, Bill 12.
Bill 12, ordinance amending and supplementing the city code at Title 6, Conduct Article 1, Regulated Rights and Actions by adding a new chapter 610 entitled Prohibition on Use of Certain Bags and Checkout Bag Charge to permit the use of only certain bags by retail establishments at the point of sale or for a delivery and establishing a charge payable by the customer to the establishment for the provision of other types of bags, all under certain terms and conditions.
Motion to hold for 4 weeks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill will be held 4 weeks. Just real quick, can we have the clerk's office reach out to January Manuel or Charlene Holder?
We did.
Oh, okay, thank you. Bill number 48.
Bill 48, resolution amending resolution number 950, which amended resolution 675, adopting and approving the 2009 capital budget to correct account numbers on the funds being transferred to the East Ohio Streetscape Planning and Design Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 49.
Bill 49, resolution amending resolution number 951, amending number 768 of 2009 entitled adopting and approving the 2010 capital budget to correct account numbers on the funds being transferred to the East Ohio Streetscape Planning and Design Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Bill is recommended. That moves us to Innovation Performance Asset Management Committee chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. One new paper, Bill 47.
Bill 47, resolution amending resolution 818, authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an agreement with Computronics, Inc. for the provision of a permitting and licensing package at an additional cost not to exceed $175,000.
Motion to approve, brief discussion.
Second.
Second.
Councilwoman?
Thank you. I just wanted people to know that I wanted members and the public to know that this is to allow for the implementation and enforcement of the lead ordinance that we passed last year. So this is the INP side of enforcement and implementation of that bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Councilman Cross.
Yeah, thank you. Councilwoman, this is an expenditure that was already accounted for. Is that correct in the 221 budget?
I will have to defer to Director Kincher, Acting Director, or Director Norman for that question.
I believe that's correct, but we do have Director Kincher with us.
Hi, Director, good morning. How are you?
I am. Good morning. That expenditure was provided by council through an amendment in December to add additional funds to support the configuration for the lead safety ordinance.
Great. And you're just simply here asking for the expenditure. I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Takes us to our last committee, Intergovernmental Affairs, chaired by Councilwoman Gross. One new paper, Bill 44.
Bill 44, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for 4808 Baum Boulevard in the 8th Ward.
To hold 2 weeks.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill will be held 2 weeks. That takes us back to Bill 45. Unfortunately, Councilman, I do not see anyone has joined us to discuss it. What is your pleasure?
I really wish discussion.
Would you like to hold a week? We've exhausted the agenda and no one has joined yet.
Then we'll offer to hold 1 week.
Okay.
Second.
And seconded, all those in favor say aye.
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 Bill will be held 1 week. That does exhaust our agenda. For today, we have meeting announcements this afternoon in a couple minutes at 1:30. Council will hold a cablecast post agenda on the potential annexation of Wilkinsburg. Next week, council will hold our regular and standing committee meetings on Tuesday, February 8th and Wednesday, February 9th, respectively. Both meetings will be held at 10 a.m. To register to speak, please fill out the sign up form on the council meeting webpage at 9 a.m. this morning of said meeting. You may also call the city clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Also, next Wednesday, February 9th at 1 p.m., council will hold a cablecast post agenda discussion on police traffic stops. Is there anything else from members? Seeing none, motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You are adjourned.